let's keep that off. All right. Okay, looks like we're live. Happy Easter. I hope all of you are having a good Easter day. I know I am. There's a reason why we have an Easter holiday. Some people don't dig it. That's fine. I'm not out here to sell you on something. I'm here to talk to you and open your head up. Maybe put a new perspective on. So, me and my friend Conall are going to be talking about a few things today. He's on his way into the studio right now. Happy Easter, Charlotte. I hope you're having a great day. Looks like we're going to talk about that sensitive case that I'm probably going to turn on the other camera whenever I do that, because that camera is aimed at my face. And I don't want you to think that I'm bullshitting you or trying to give you a line of guff. But until then, kind of keep it light, fluffy. Yeah, this is a day that you find me usually, like, I'll be remembering like my ancestors on days like today, because like this used to be the day where like the Lombardo clan or the Deal clan would be getting together in force. And now in the 2020s, there's very little of that, because lots of people are now with their creator. Hey, how you doing there, Conall? You're on mute.
My cigar Easter present to myself, which is a sample pack of fine, world's finest cigars, actually, Gurkha. It was my daughter's Easter gift to me, so I figured I should smoke one on Easter, right? And no, actually, she did not buy it because that would have been illegal. But you get the idea.
That's understandable.
Let's go with that one. I'll save my evil until,
Evening, Charlotte Williams once again, and Six Nation 31 Kings.
So who has all joined us? Six Nation, Charles.
I thought it was you. If you wanted to grab Amanal or some of your usuals, I don't want to grab like the typical table breakers crew. No offense.
No, if we go with the conversation that I think we're going on, I don't want to muddy the waters with. I'm not saying that they would muddy the waters per se. I'm just saying I want it to be a conversation between you, who has one opinion on it, and me, has the other, might have the same opinion. I don't know. I don't. How do I?
That's why we're having a conversation about it. We're gonna figure out what's going on. That's all.
And me and you can have this conversation without there being the water getting too muddy. I don't want to bring other people into it.
Sure, that sounds good. All right, so I guess maybe let me. I was thinking about going over to the computer and just facing the camera, but I really don't want to move because I'm in the right spot to talk about this. But
do whatever you think is best there, Haas. This is your show. I was about ready to fire up my own, thinking I was the one going to be hosting it, but this works just as well.
We're going to go to the Texas Tribune. And hey, Omanal. Hello, Six Nation 31 Kings, Charlotte Williams, and everybody else that's piling in here. This was updated 23 hours ago, April 8th, 2023. Texas Tribune. Okay. The governor, Greg Abbott, says he asked the Board of Pardons and Paroles to expedite review, recommend clemency one day after Daniel Perry was convicted of murder. Governor Greg Abbott directed the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles to consider recommending a pardon for Daniel Perry on Saturday, one day after a Travis County jury convicted the U.S. Army sergeant in 2020 murder of Austin protester Garrett Foster. After 17 hours of deliberations and an 8-day trial, jurors found Perry guilty of murder for shooting and killing Foster, who was armed with an AK-47 as part of a group protesting police brutality. Perry, an Uber driver, had encountered the protest a few blocks from Capitol in downtown Austin, a location I'm very familiar with. Under pressure from conservatives, Abbott announced Saturday that he asked the parole board to review Perry's conviction on an expedited basis. The Texas Constitution, he said, requires parole board to recommend a pardon before a governor could act. I look forward to approving the board's pardon recommendation as soon as it hits my desk, he said in a statement posted to Twitter. Texas has one of the strongest stand your ground laws of self-defense that cannot be nullified by a jury or progressive district attorney, Abbott added, repeating conservative criticism leveled against Travis County Democratic District Attorney Jose Garza. Prior to Abbott's announcement, the Republican Party of Texas called on the governor to get involved. This case should have never been prosecuted. A pardon by Abbott's in order, wrote Texas GOP Chair Matt Rinaldi in a Friday evening post to Twitter. Tucker Carlson, conservative commentator on Fox News, covered Perry's conviction on his show Friday evening. Carlson said he had invited Abbott to discuss whether he was considering a pardon for Perry, but said the governor declined. So that is Greg Abbott's position. There's no right of self-defense in Texas, Carlson told his viewers. Based on parole board recommendations, Abbott granted 2 pardons in 2022, 8 in 2021, and 7 in 2020, all for lower-level offenses, not capital offenses, including theft, providing alcohol to a minor, assault by contract, burglary of vehicle, credit card abuse, and illegally carrying a firearm. That's what he's pardoned before. Perry, found guilty of murder but not guilty of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, killed Foster during a protest against police brutality on July 25th, one of many that was happening across the country after George Floyd, a fentanyl addict, was killed by a Minneapolis police officer, a white individual at that, in May of 2020. According to Austin police, and I added some of that in, guess what I added? According to Austin police, Perry was driving for Uber when he stopped his car and honked at protesters as they walked through the street. Seconds later, he drove his car into the crowd, police said. Yes, when they go into the street, you really don't have a choice. You have to stay there or you have to try to plow forward at a slow speed. Not assaulting anybody with the bumpers or fender wells, but trying to let them know, hey, I just want to get out of here. I don't mean to be an irritant. You can protest. Let me get the fuck out. That's all I ask. And I've been in those situations before because I've been in Austin when things have gotten heated. I've been driving for Uber since 2016. Don't anymore, but I'm familiar with it. Foster, who was a 28-year-old white man and an Air Force vet, had been seen openly carrying an AK-47 rifle at the time, which is still legal. There are no conflicting accounts as to whether Foster raised the rifle before Perry. Every account I've read says Foster raised the rifle at Perry. That is considered assault. And from what Perry witnessed, the safety was being taken off. He thought quickly, and he was legally armed, shot and killed Foster, and fled the area. He called the police and reported what happened, claiming he shot in self-defense after Foster aimed his weapon at him. Both men are white. Now, I will say Foster's going to have more social credit points because up until the point of his death, he had a black girlfriend who was in a wheelchair. I mean, you can research this shit, and you're not going to find that I'm wrong.
He was driving.
Yeah, Perry was the one driving for Uber.
He was. I'm getting this from. I'm working through the logic. Just give me a second. I'm working through the logic train on this. He was driving. He hit it. He got into. I got into. He was.
Wait. Hold on. We got a guy that was witnessing this.
Omanal?
Yep. Omanal, you want in, man? You want to talk about this? I'd be more than happy to bring you in.
That would be awesome, actually.
Because he was a personal fucking witness to this. I'm reading from the paper, and I'm talking from everything I've heard on the news because I've been following this as much as I can. Omanel, if you want in, let me know. All right. You want to bring them in here?
Yeah, I can.
Just copy our address bar and get them on in here. Because and if you want to dual stream this on your channel, please go ahead.
I can't actually. I don't have the little button on the top right side.
Okay.
So, or I would. I'm sending him the link now. The only thing that kind of ruffles my feathers, and I say ruffle my feathers very loosely, was the leaving of the site. But if he was in a mass mob of people, he had to leave. There was no good answer there.
Okay. I mean, I was watching it I guess it was that morning after that occurred because it had the video up there. And I'm going to say what I saw based on the video that was presented. I'm not saying there weren't different angles that I haven't seen. Okay. But what was happening is the crowd was walking. He was on the road. The protesters were actually walking faster than he did. He stops at to turn right, and he turns his blinker on. He's going slow. So, it's not like he hit anyone with the car or was moving fast. Like people that were lying about, oh, he drove right through there. He didn't drive at any fast speed. People were walking past that car. He turns on the light because he's trying to go right. They wouldn't move. They just keep walking, blocking him off. And he gets fed up and he honks the horn. As soon as he honks the horn, everyone starts surrounding him. And then all of a sudden, there's a gunshot. And Foster is dead. Foster was the one with the AK-47, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they had. Now, I've seen different angles of the video and stuff. And, what gets me about it is it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And unfortunately, and this is everyone likes to say, oh, open carry this, open carry that. Look, if it's concealed carry, you're one thing. But let's be honest. He had his hand on his rifle. It was shouldered. And you're walking towards a car that's being surrounded by a bunch of people. I think that any reasonable person would view themselves as their life is in danger. This is why, whether you like it or not, whether you're pro Second Amendment or not, you don't brandish a gun at anyone. You don't,
exactly.
Because that you can be in the right, and the other person can be in the right, and people forget about this. And it can be considered self-defense on both sides in certain cases. And like I said, the stories coming out when I saw it, and there was the video. What gets me about saying he drove through the crowd. No, the crowd was walking probably about 3 miles an hour, and he was driving so slow that they were actually walking past his car, and they surrounded his car. I hate saying it, especially with my son. If I feel my car's being surrounded, that's not a position you want to be in front of my vehicle. That's, God forbid that occurs. And so, would a reasonable person feel threatened? Yes. Absolutely. If a reasonable person came up with a gun, would they feel that their life was in danger? That's the real question. Everyone says, well, he could have pulled it up. I understand that, but the real question is, as a reasonable person, you're in your vehicle, you're surrounded by a crowd, and a man comes up with a gun walking towards you, and it's in hand. Now, again, he can point it at the ground, but, how do you feel about that? That's the real question that should have come from it. What gets me about it is, and this is the biggest issue I have, is and this doesn't apply, this applies to anyone, when the prosecutor withholds information from the grand jury.
Yeah, there was a report that the policeman had in black and white, and the DA was not allowing that to be seen.
It was 130 pages, by my understanding, and here's something that I think that we all need to understand, because maybe at some point we need to get a book for grand jury. Grand juries have a lot more power, and the problem is people just think it's a rubber stamp. And if you're ever going to be on a grand jury, use the power that's enabled by the grand jury, which means you can call witnesses, you can call other things, you can ask for more information, you can subpoena people to find out if there is enough evidence of a crime. And that's something that, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, it needs to be done more often. You can't just go in and say, "Oh, well, look, I'll do whatever they tell me." No, that's not.
No.
If you have power as a grand jury, you should take it as responsibility, not as, "Oh, this is boring. I don't want to have to deal with this. Let's just get it over." No, never do that. Because you're now. If it looks like there's enough evidence, I saw the grand jury on Michael Brown, and what gets me about it is, in some cases, you're going through it and it's like, well, what does it actually say? Like, why wasn't this released? And a lot of people don't read it, but I think that's kind of ridiculous for that. The fact that, and this is historical, when I was taking Texas government, 15 plus years ago, the governor doesn't technically have the power to pardon until he's given the recommendation. And that has to do with, what was it? Was it Ma and Pa Ferguson? Anyway, it was one of the governors.
I think it was Ferguson case.
Well, they used to sell off pardons. So people would pay them a bunch of money and they would pardon you. And so the Texas legislature took that power away from the governor, that he has unilateral power to pardon people.
I think I've heard that deal before. You gave the Catholic Church X amount of silver pieces, and your favorite family member is no longer in purgatory. They get a free ticket straight to heaven.
Oh, you mean the you mean the, what was it? Plenary indulgences, where you give the money before you sin, and then they'll give you a pardon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the Mark Rich case and several others that occur with it. Is I'm not against pardons. I think that there are, to me, if it's a clear case of injustice, absolutely pardons should be warranted. For people that have turned their lives around years later, I believe pardons should be warranted. I'm not against pardons. I think that this is one of those things that, and I like listening to Mike Cernovich very much, and I haven't listened to Robert Barnes tonight. I'll probably do that tomorrow, where they go over the case. But from the video that I saw, I can understand why he felt threatened. I don't know if Foster just was pointing the gun at not. Everyone's point stuff, but how far does it take you from go here to here? That's real short. So if you start walking up on
both
someone,
guys recognized that they were both vets.
Yeah.
I think that whenever you have somebody kind of just casually walking a crowd with an AK-47 like that, I think you recognize that that's not a newbie gun. That's not a filthy casual gun. That's something that, like, you have to know a little bit about firearms and trajectory theory. You have to know what you're doing before you can use it, because there's a lot of people that they will get behind a weapon and they just kind of pray bullshit and they never hit a target.
But and I'm not saying that for one. Here's the thing: if he didn't have his hands on the gun, that would be completely different. The problem is, once you have your hand on the gun, then if I feel that I'm being surrounded and you're walking up on me, I feel threatened, and the requirement for self-defense. Everyone says stand your ground. He could not retreat. That's what gets me about this. His car was surrounded. His choice was either to accelerate and run people over or to shoot the guy. That's what he felt. And that's not a stand your ground. See, people misinterpret self-defense and stand your ground. George Zimmerman never used stand your ground rules, and yet that was always what they argued, because they hate that rule. They hate the fact that you don't have to retreat. And in almost all cases, when they're trying to use it, the guy could not retreat anyway, so stand your ground did not apply.
Yeah, it's very invalid. It's almost like a straw man argument.
Yeah,
that gets picked up by people with a various, and I'm not saying just going to be Democrats, but a certain agenda that it's utilized as a bludgeoning tool for certain arguments.
They don't like certain rules, which is stand your ground. They don't, the goal of a lot of times is to use it as an ability that you'll get prosecuted for defending yourself, but then they'll let off criminals for actually doing these activities. And again, this comes down to, and I hate saying it, is maybe Garrett did not have it, or was anyway, Foster Garrett. He had no intention of using it. The problem is you had your hand on the gun. As soon as you do that, it's like me putting my hand on a pistol while I walk up towards you. I can view that as you might be pulling it, and that's where it comes down to self-defense. If he had his hands up like this, I'd be like, okay, that's very different. I know you can move him down, but it's like, hey man, you can't do this. I'm like, all right, he's just carrying it around with him. But
Here's what I'm thinking.
Sure.
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm trying to look at this from a different bunch of different angles. The mental gymnastics is fun with this one, I guess.
Yeah.
There's already been a history of people driving right into crowds.
Okay, but he was not. He was driving very slow.
Hear me out. He might have been going 4 miles an hour, 3 miles per hour, and the crowd been moving faster. Okay, I'm in a crowd. I'm there with for whatever reason I'm there. I already know there's a history of people running their cars into crowds, and it doesn't take that long for your car to get to the right speed. So
Okay.
But when there's a crowd there, you're not going to be able to get to the right speed. You're going to be restricted to the crowd's ability to part and let you pass.
I'm going to bring up something else that you're forgetting. The reason the crowd surrounded him is because he wanted to turn right. He was stopped at the time.
Right.
So he was, when I first heard it, which I thought was funny because I saw the video, and then the news media was like, he was flying through the crowd like this. Like, no, he wasn't. He pulled in like this real slow, and he turns on his turn signal. Okay. And they just keep walking by, ignoring it. You know, with this, generally the crosswalk, people walking both in the street, and they were walking, which anyone that's been outside of a concert knows how this goes. They just keep walking, through the crosswalk or whatever. It doesn't matter what the light is. And he honks his horn so he gets the chance to move. That's when the crowd got agitated and surrounded his car. As soon as
he pissed off the mob, and the mob surrounded him. I'm not saying the guy is wrong. I'm not saying the guy is right. I'm just trying to look at this from.
Okay, sure. I know. I mean,
different. I'm not really trying not to play devil's advocate with this one because it seems like it's fairly cut and clean situation. He did what guy comes up with him. Well, they surrounded his car. A guy with what was it? AK?
He had an AK-47.
AK-47. That probably I'll leave the jokes out. Walked up to the guy. He had in a position that, this is not, friendly. This is not, I'm not coming over to shake your hand. The guy in the car is now surrounded by a group of people, and you see this guy coming from your right, left, or whatever direction he was coming from. Yeah, I mean, it's an easy step. It's a step to, oh God, this guy's going to shoot me. I need to defend myself. Bruce, you said they're both vets?
No. I wasn't
actually, from what I'm reading, wasn't Garrett Foster a veteran?
I'm not sure if he was. Okay, so I'm watching the video right now.
What Texas Tribune says, Foster, who was a 28-year-old white man and an Air Force veteran.
He may have been. I don't know about that. Here's the thing. Here's the video.
On the scene,
we can all go to the New York Post. It's on the New York Post, and
if you bring it in here with a present tab at the bottom of your.
Let me see if I can. I don't know because I'm not on a computer. I'm on my iPad here.
Okay.
So, let me see if I can just get a.
If you give me the link, I can present that.
Yeah. Let me try doing this now.
By the way, it's not safe for kids. Don't have your kids watch my fucking show. If your children are watching my show and they're looking to me for advice, you failed as a parent.
Sorry, Maggie. Get off the show.
Okay, here we go, Bruce. It's going to have all the bigger links, but this is what I'm showing from there. And there's actually a longer one, but this is the one I can find.
What kind of car he was driving?
You'll see from this. I just put up the video for Bruce.
Where'd you put it at?
I put it in your if you look in Discord.
Excellent.
And see, I think they're missing a couple of seconds from this, but
what was the old joke with the AK-47s? They always rattled.
They do that.
So that's one video. I think there's another one out there that's a little bit longer. I need to go find that one if I can.
Oh, by the way, happy Easter to both of you guys.
Oh, yeah, you too. Hey,
Yep, this is the Austin I know.
Oh, God. This is after any concert, music, basketball, football game, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to see the one let me see if I can find one that's a little bit longer. And if so, I'll send you that one as well. But I have to watch it a little bit here. Okay. Well, that's one. There's other videos in here.
Is Austin one of the camera-friendly cities where there's cameras on every stoplight?
Every stoplight.
There's a lot of them.
I mean, the British has really got down to the fine art.
Yeah, but you know what's funny is their crime rate's increasing because they don't want to have to do anything about it.
The accounts I had heard was that Foster raised his gun first.
I don't. The problem is that it's like one little clip. I can't tell if he's raising it or not. All I can say is, from a self-defense standpoint, listening to a bunch of lawyers when I was listening to the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff, and then the other one, which was the Zimmerman case, and I'd have to go look at what the Texas law says, is that it's specifically, like for Florida, it says if you believe that you're in severe bodily harm, which means that you're going to get some kind of permanent injury, or you're fear for your life, that's when self-defense can be used. Which I'm going, okay, that can be very similar. The problem is there's like a quarter of a second that they might have it, which means that all you're really seeing is like this. Now, I can't tell, when they're trying to do it, and they're like, well, man, that is so hard to tell. The problem really comes down to is you have to look at the person's mindset. Did they feel that their life was in danger? And the answer is, as a person that would be there, yes, I would feel that my life was in danger.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's a little bit more to this that they keep cutting off the first 10 or 20 seconds from this, where he's actually
when they don't show the car being surrounded, that lops it to one side.
Yeah, well, no, he is getting that one. They do show it being surrounded. What I'm saying is, but there's one that's an extra, like there's like 15 or 30 seconds before where you see the car moving up, and he sits there. And you see people walking, just like we said, at any concert. He's turning on his light. He gets mad, and then he honks his horn. That's when they all surround him. And then that's when they come through this. That's why I get kind of mad that stop cutting at the end and show me the first 20 or 30 seconds there. Because I remember watching this when it occurred. And I went, what in the world's going on here? And that's when they said, oh, so-and-so was carrying a gun. He was shot. I said, okay, that's kind of weird for that. But yeah, But like they start showing it as soon as people start surrounding it, and that's when it comes in. But I'm like, there's another few seconds before it where you see him slowly move the car up, and he stops. He turns on his turn signal. No one's moving, and then he honks the horn, and then all these people start moving towards his car.
And somebody that understands low ready, they can do on healthcare pretty fast.
Yeah, well, that's. I'm not saying whether it's, we can talk. Okay, so here's one. Let's see. I've got the.
They're not going to present those. They're not going to make those. Those tapes have been erased, Charlotte, because that would be an open and shut case.
Okay. Actually, this might be it here. The KXAN. Let me show you. Because it shows also the view of the driver apparently. Let's see how this works.
Go ahead and throw it over to me on Discord.
Sure.
And I'll take care of.
Yeah. I can. Where's my Discord?
How
And Conall, I didn't mean to invite Omanal in here to mitigate the opposition opinion.
I'm not. I'm just trying to say what I saw with it, and let's see how I can. Okay, why aren't you bringing this thing up? Oh, I know why, because I have it in the wrong one. Okay, here we go. All right, Bruce, this is the one from KXAN, which shows it from two different angles concurrently.
One of us have to make friends with a lawyer that's willing to get on these shows with us.
I will say this much is I can thank Robert Barnes and listen to him and Viva Fry for making sure I did not have to get a shot when the government was requiring it.
We got two perspectives on this.
You just killed it, Bruce.
You see it or no?
No, you killed it.
screen. I boomered. That's what I did. All right. I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit.
Sure. So you can see the car moving up here and kind of stops.
Typical Austinite.
Yeah, and all of a sudden people start coming around the car, you know, and then as soon as the gunshot goes off, they all start running. So, but this shows a little bit more at the beginning, which is what I wanted to show. You know, the story that he was running into the crowd and driving at high speed. No, people are literally walking past his car and he stopped.
Yeah, he's crawling along.
And he's trying to turn right. That's what's going on here. He's trying to turn right, and everyone's blocking it. And
where's
the
gun?
guy with the gun at on here? Is he?
He's on the other side. That's the problem. He's on the other side of the car. He's on the driver's side, and that's where everyone runs.
All right. Okay.
I mean,
no, there's only so much. It's not you. I just like. I would love to have seen the approach of the gunman to, you know, have a better opinion on the situation. You're absolutely right. He wasn't driving fast. He was doing below. I mean, he was crawling. He was absolutely crawling. The only reason why I say is bring up the history of people driving right into the crowds, because there has been history of that. And if I'm in the crowd and I think some jackass is going to roll up into the crowd and I'm there with my family or people I love, I'm going to be somewhat hesitant to the approaching car. But if he's crawling into it like he is just trying to turn.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that he's not being aggressive in this. That's why I said is when I was hearing stuff, they're trying to make out, well, he rushed. No, you can see what he did. What he's mad at is he wants to turn. I'm not saying he's mad at, you know how it is. You wanted to go turn. Everyone's just walking by like, oh, come on.
Go downtown Nashville after a hockey game. You don't. I get it. I've been in that situation, or back in college. I get it. I really do.
I'll show you what I know about Austin pretty well. Okay.
I'm just thinking I might not go down to Austin from now on. I mean, it's not even that far.
This is San Jack. Here's 8th Street and 7th Street. Here's 6th Street. All the fun stuff is down on 6th Street West, apparently. I found it was better on the east side myself, but that's just me. There is a very large, right off of San Jack, there's a big Alpha 8. You have parking lot over here, Red River Street. Let me get back here. San Jack. Okay. At this point, they would start barricading shit on on the roads. So you can go up to 8th Street and then you can go over here, but going there's nothing coming from 7th Street on San Jack. That's a cutoff. And going up 6th Street from 35 is haram. You can't do it. You cannot do it. Hey, author Stephen Walton, thank you for showing some love, sir. Patriot Hobbies, good to see you. But anyway, you can get up to San Jack on 8th and 7th Street. 6th Street and 5th Street, you're not driving on. Any Saturday or Friday night, you're not driving on. Sunday's probably not driving on that either. You have this entire area just completely barricaded. Now, on this day, isn't this over by the Capitol over here?
It's somewhere around there. I'm not sure. I think it was like a weeknight or something like that.
Yeah, it was a weeknight, and they had a protest against police brutality. And the Uber ride was going to the protest, from what I had read, and that was why he's stuck going downtown, because you got to go where your customer wants to go. Now, I'm not going to say this is a good practice for you and your car safety, but if you are in Austin, Texas area, and you do want to make some extra money and you don't mind destroying your car because it will get destroyed with 200, 300 miles a night on it, go ahead and do that. I used to ride for about 10 hours straight from San Antonio to Austin, do 8 hours of work, and be on my way home by 4 a.m. After 2 airport runs, by about 4:30, I'd be on the road back 71 to 35, and just try to get home before the traffic was too much of an issue. That was what I did. I dealt with the bar crowd, and then after 3, it turns into the jet setter crowd. So you go from one group of assholes that's unfucking sociable to another group of assholes that you got to give them coffee to speak properly. Come on, let's get some vowels out. Yeah, author Stephen Walton. The first 6 months I had my car, I put 50,000 miles on it. Yeah. And
well, it is. But like it says, Austin's completely different. Well, and that's true. Well, and I don't even know. As I lived in Austin from 2000 to about 2005, and I never liked going downtown for the most part. And that's mostly just because I hate all that traffic and finding a place to park and other stuff. But I remember walking down that area. But even so, I remember, yeah, if you have to go doing any event, it's just stay away from that area. So, like, I can drop you off within about 2 blocks. You know,
we're not giving you front door service. The police have barricaded it.
And I don't think that they did because this wasn't a weekend. So, you know, it was
But still, the other thing that's bothering me is it was supposed to be a peaceful protest, which I fully. Okay. Sorry, Bruce has made me drop my bouncy ball of attention because he showed me his golden cock. But a peaceful progress is supposed to be a group of people, signs, not yelling, but chanting something, nonviolent protest.
Mm-hmm.
At what part of the term nonviolent protest means, hey, I probably should bring my AK-47?
Well, there's 2 quotes or 2 instances from this case, one from each of these men, Foster and Perry, that do not paint them in a good situation. Perry, the shooter of Foster, on a message board or Facebook post somewhere on social media before all this happened, he's like, I fucking hate the protesters. I want to run them over. I think that's a common thought among anybody who has to drive downtown. Any Uber driver is going to think that as well, because they realize getting in is easy. Getting out to get another pickup is going to be very difficult. And it's even worse if you're doing a protest and you have to run over to UT and it's just one long mop of people just swarming the roads and sidewalks. It's miserable. But he said that, which he didn't run him over. No. I will say that.
Yeah. Well, he was stopped. You know, as much as people talk about this, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you feel about it. You don't want to damage your car.
No, and that's
people forget about this. Is that, it's just like whenever I drive down, there's a reason I don't want to hit a buzzard. And people are like, why are you slowing down? Because I don't want to hit a buzzard. Do you know what that thing will do to your windshield? And
yes.
Let alone if it's still alive, and let alone and a buzzard's only about 10, 15 pounds. A human being is much, much more. And it's like, no, you don't just. And the other part is, I don't want to run over anyone anyway, regardless. But yeah.
Well, the problem that we have in Austin is that you have a bunch of people that are there for an agenda, not either good or ill, but they're there for a reason. Because nobody sane would want to live in Austin, just like nobody sane would want to live in Los Angeles or Las Vegas.
Or Pekin, Illinois. I'm sorry.
Pekin is a beautiful town, comparable.
Okay.
I can go to a park in Pekin and not step on syringes, okay?
Oh, okay. I'll give you that. You might step on a few hoods, but and I don't. I mean, white fabric kinds, but
I can go to a park in Austin or San Fran or Los Angeles, and I have a chance of picking AIDS up from a syringe or broken bottle.
Wow.
I went out with a lady. This was when I got back from Iraq, who was the I think she was the risk manager for Adobe. For Adobe Photoshop, that organization. And she had to fly to She was allowed to work remote. This is pre-COVID. And she said, my boss hates it, but I'm good enough at my job that I'm allowed to do this. And she was talking about how it was, whether you like Willie Brown or not. She said the city of San Francisco under Newsom got so bad. She's like, you had to walk by people dying of drug overdoses and feces and everything else. And she was happy to move away, I think. And so she would do the risk. And like, well, how do you stop that? I was a civilian, and the number of people that went over for Iraq it's interesting that veterans have thanked me for being over there. And I think it's just, sadly, not enough people understand what those guys go through, and they put their lives on the line. I felt safer in Afghanistan and Iraq than I do in Dallas. Okay. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. You see, I'm drinking a local Dallas beer, by the way.
Yeah. Well, it depends on where you go, like everywhere else. It's just like when I lived in Chicago. You could tell the good place and the bad places pretty quickly. But the problem with downtown Austin is you've got it's a liberal school. It's a very liberal school. It always has been. Like I was telling someone in here, is my friend in 1990, the lead up to the first Gulf War, and people are doing the exact same protests. I mean, they're taking the exact same slogans and signs from 1970s Vietnam, and we were just laughing at them at the time. And the problem is, these people have graduated, they've gone into schools, they got into academia, and they're teaching all these people in there instead of trying to do critical thinking, which is kind of sad for the whole thing. We're just, oh, well, this is what it is. Well, okay, let's look what it actually means. What does this occur? And this is the problem. This is why I like listening to Mike Cernovich, where he was saying, look, if you find out there's a Soros DA, don't go to that set town.
That's the problem with Soros. He has so many of them. They're like cockroaches. I mean, they are the legal cockroaches of society.
Well, the problem that I have with them is if you're a career criminal, they let you go. But if you use any kind of self-defense, then they'll prosecute you. And that's the problem that I have with a lot of these DAs is, you'll let murderers go, or people that strangle another person, or things like that. You know what? We won't give you any bond. You'll go out on bail. And then you get someone else that says, hey, I feared for my life. It's pretty clear cut. They shoot someone, like, well, we're going to take it to trial. It's like, really? So and even if you win, the idea is to bankrupt you. I think there may be, but I think Shiner Bach is the one that I know most people like. Charlotte.
I've drank my share of Bach.
I knew a guy that's where his wife took him for their anniversary, was the Shiner Bach.
Now that's love. So going back on like the topic that we're kind of talking, or not kind of talking, we are talking about. Do any of you guys know how long the trial was?
It was like a week or two for the actual length. I think it was about a week, and then like 2 or 3 days of deliberation.
That's a quick trial for a murder trial, or am I?
That sounds pretty fast, in my opinion, for the actual
huge fast.
Yeah, and the question really comes down to, and I hate saying this, and I'm again listening to Robert Barnes and listening to some of these others, even when they were talking about the OGL. But when Mercado Law was having all these people on, I used to like listening to Nate the lawyer too, who would talk about whether it was a good shoot or a bad shoot. Or what I liked about Nate the lawyer was he wouldn't say whether it was a good shoot or a bad shoot. What he would do is he would tell you the rules, and then he'd shoot it and say, now you determine whether you think it was a good shoot or a bad shoot. So that's
a good teacher.
Yeah, well, he's online, but Nate, and not that even lawyers agree with each other. That's the other problem. Everyone thinks he'll be, but what was the Andrew Branca, I think, does the self-defense law. But I was hearing from Robert Barnes, he said the average cost for trial is like, for a murder trial, is like $1 million or more. And if you don't have that kind of representation, how in the world are you going to be able to get a good defense for yourself, unless people are doing stuff pro bono?
Oh, yeah. I have a friend who works public aid out on the East Coast, and she gets like 15 anywhere from 15 to 20 different cases drop on her desk a day, and she's supposed to skim over it and be able to give them the best legal advice she can have when she can probably only spare 5 seconds or less than 5 minutes on each folder. I mean, that's not. I have issues. I have a lot of issues. But that we're promised if you get arrested and you can't afford a lawyer, they're supposed to give you a lawyer that will defend you to the best of their abilities, not give you a lawyer that only has 5 minutes to look at your file.
Well,
That's not fair.
Well, let's take a perfect example with a little bit different, which again, I like listening to several people, but I like listening to Nate the lawyer because I like listening to people on different sides to get different perspectives. But he was talking about General Flynn, and that one is they withheld a lot of information. They whatever the FBI did, but the other one was Perkins Cole didn't want certain things out there so they could keep getting favorable deals with the FBI for other cases, and that's one of the other things to do is make sure that you have someone that specializes only in defense and that they don't have a lot of former government people on there. That sounds funny, but that's really what it sounds like. I'll tell you this much. If I win the lottery, I would give a bunch of money to, the Barnes LLC, just because I know that he does a lot of pro bono stuff, especially with, what is he doing? The Amish farmer right now?
Oh, yeah, you told me about that.
Like, this is ridiculous. There's certain things I think that government should do, and there's certain things that government should not do. And the problem that I'm having with a lot of it is that they should not be enforcing things just for big companies to remove small competitors. If I'm buying unpasteurized milk, I know I'm getting it from. I know how it's done, and I can talk to them. Actually, Bruce, there's one about 45 minutes away from here from me. But, in certain cases, they're saying, like for goat's milk, if it's unpasteurized, it's not fit for human consumption. Okay, I'm just buying it for X reason, and I will, and I tell, because I can get it, but yeah.
I joked around with you, it was the things.
Yeah.
I'll go with the mammoth meatball for a second. They made they cloned and was able to make meat from a mammoth and mixed it with whatever to make a meatball out of it, and everybody's afraid to eat it because it might not be good for human substance because our now digestive system might not be able to handle the protein that was in the mammoth that we used to eat years ago.
I'm willing to try a mammoth meatball. I may eat a small amount, just enough so I can get a taste. But it amazes me considering all the stuff that kids put in their mouths and things that we put in our mouths is that we're now, don't get me wrong, now I can have certain foods that just go right through me. But look, I can have indigestion. I can have a little bit of food poisoning. I'm not saying that it should be fit for human consumption, but you can taste certain things. That's like we joked about that one time. I forgot my my brisket outside for a whole day.
Oh yeah,
turned out fine.
So this was white on back on topic, white on white violence. Both people were white. The trial seems like it was extremely fast for a murder fought by this must have been fairly high political. There had to be a lot of wheat in the news for this. And he was found guilty by a juror. By a panel of jurors, right? Or was it the judge's decision?
Nope, it was a jury trial.
It was a jury trial, which is what it should be. Here's the interesting thing I heard from Robert Barnes. If you only have the money for one thing, do it for jury selection. Don't necessarily buy the best. Don't necessarily buy the best lawyer. You're best off with trying to get the best jury selection, and there are ways of doing that. But there are certain things that I had. We think that the rule of law works one way, and now I've been listening to Robert Barnes and been reading some other stuff. And it's the, I've seen the legalized psychedelic mushrooms.
In Colorado.
Well, it's not just Colorado. They're saying 22 states. the thing is, I'm looking at it is, are they actually legalizing it or decriminalizing it? Those are two very different things.
Is it going to be like pot where you can just go buy it at a store, or is it going to be a prescription for medical use only?
Well, the other thing is decriminalized just means that they're not going to charge you for it, but it's not legalized. So in other words, you can't sell it, but they're not going to charge you if you have some.
You know, pot's still illegal federally, whatever. So I don't know. That's
everyone's talking. Oh, go ahead, Zed.
No,
I was looking at Charlotte Williams where she's doing, blueberries and things, but I have to laugh because Charlotte, I used to buy blueberry beer for my ex, and that made her such a nice person when I brought it in. Even when she had legitimate reasons to be mad, like within 2 minutes, she was just like, best $8 I ever spent on a 6-pack. Yeah, I mean that's it. Is the if it helps PTSD, I hear that it helps smoking cessation, some alcoholism, stuff like that. But to be fair, I heard that they only did it on 20 people, so we've got a really small subset, and so I don't know. I'm just which you guys talk about plums and stuff, but sorry, Bruce, I'm trying to get apricots in the ground at some point. I might buy some peaches to put in the ground.
There's a really good plum and a good apricot wine out of Victoria, Texas, down on the coast, from South Wind Wineries. And I say South Wind, but it's South Wind Wineries.
Okay.
And they have nothing but fruit beers or fruit wines all over. And you go to HEB, you can find South Wind Winery, and that's probably the best wine that I've drank. That's the only wine I buy for people now. I've not heard a complaint. The wife is in the other room.
I didn't get her drunk. It was just one thing, which reminds me, I still owe her some. I promised her some blueberry beer when she came up to see my son's acting. His little acting class. But yeah. No, but that's the thing that I look at is, there's certain cities, if you start finding these prosecutors, you have to find them and get rid of them, or you have to make sure that you're going to get a fair trial. And that's awfully hard because a lot of people who are conservative leaning will say, look, I'm biased here, and they automatically get thrown out. Whereas a lot of the activists just want to get on the jury. And then they're going to say, we're going to do it anyway. And I will say this much. If you believe someone is innocent, do not change it. It doesn't matter how many times the judge sends you back. Don't change your vote just because you want to go home.
What was that movie? What was that great movie? We should probably
12 Angry Men.
12 Angry Men. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it one time, but the real point is that all too often people just want to go home, and they'll bend down. If you really believe someone is innocent, and this is what you have to ask yourself: what is 2 or 3 more days, or even a week, being in a jury pool, compared to putting someone in jail for 20 or 30 years?
I hate to say it, but make it financially feasible. They're losing work, which they may or may not get paid for.
They get paid a very minimal amount, like $30 or something like that a day, and it's for
$30 a day. You're right. So they're losing work, and granted, their work cannot fire them, but they don't have to pay them.
Right.
It can go for a week trial, or it could be something as long and stupid as the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, where they're which was months. Not months. I actually however long it fucking took. So if I get called to jury duty, and if and that just sounds like bad, I'm going to be here for a while, and I'm going to lose money by being here, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say whatever I need to say to get out of it, because I like having a roof over my head. I like having food in my fridge. I like to having a car. What this bastard did is not my problem. More than he probably should or should not be sent to jail, whatever. But or am I sounding like too much of a dick?
Well, it's one thing to try getting out of jury duty. I don't blame anyone that's trying to get out of jury duty. I'm just saying, if you're a juror, and that's the problem that comes into it. And a lot of times the judge, if they want a certain, like they want a guilty verdict, will keep sending people back over and over again to make sure, and they know in how, whether it's one holdout or not, but in some ways you're best off doing stuff like that. And I was reading the, which I need to finish the book. The problem is I get to about 100 pages of the book and I stop. There's a great book, I think by Gary Spence, who never lost a trial. Look at the trials he did. He did Randy Weaver. He did a few others that were out there that are real famous trials, and he never lost. And I didn't realize that he was on these big things. And I'm sorry, he never lost a criminal trial, and he hadn't lost a civil trial in like 50 years or something like that. It was, but yeah, Gary Spence was one of those that actually, and he talks about some of the ways to try doing things. And the problem is you can't appeal to logic. You have to appeal to emotions. But, you know, every time I've been trying to call for jury duty, either I'm going overseas and I would call them up, or they would cancel it because it was usually like a traffic thing. You know, but I'm just saying, if you're on a murder trial or something like this, don't change your mind just because you want to go home. You know, how guilty are you going to be for having someone, you know, be in jail that's innocent for 20 or 30 years? You know, if it's, you know, I hate saying it, is if it's going to be something like a $200 fine because they were speeding, that's very different. At traffic court in Austin took over 2 years. I knew a girl that did that. 2 years from the time that they were going to give her a ticket. She says, no, I'm going to go to trial. She had to wait over 2 years to get on trial for that.
That's bad.
Well, by that time, that officer has either forgotten or he may have actually left the force. You know, so now
More than likely the latter.
Well, I don't even mean anything bad. I just mean, you know, for 2 years, that's pretty long. And he may not even remember, let alone show up. You know, it's like, I don't remember when this ticket was over. Now, that said, is my ex tried doing that. And, you know, because she used to work with a lot of lawyers, and they said, oh, yeah, go for this. Well, they put up a date for that, and she immediately pled because, and I mean, the date was within something like 20 days. She's like, oh, no, that's not going to work in a small town. That guy's going to be there till he dies. Well, she was speeding, I think.
No, I get it. I mean, I've lived in large cities and small towns. Large cities, yeah, they're not going to remember you after, you know, a couple weeks. Small town sheriff, yeah, he probably got the job after high school, and he's going to retire from that job.
Yeah, it's but like I said, it's in the girl. I say girl. She was a young lady. I guess she was 21 or 22. Anyway, what she was saying was that she was at a stoplight. It was during winter. She was getting hot. She removed her seatbelt, took off her coat, and put the seatbelt right back on at the stoplight. And the officer ticketed her for not wearing her seatbelt.
Really not a ethical thing he did.
Well, yeah. And that's why she's like, oh, hell no, I'm going to try out for that one. I'm like, yeah, I would find you innocent.
Did the car move? No. Was the car running? Yes. Did she put the seatbelt back on within a timely manner? Yes. Then get the fucking head out of your ass. I'm sorry.
Well, and here's the problem that you have with a lot of them. And I mean, I used to work with some of them. I like sheriff's departments a lot more because sheriff's departments don't make their money from traffic things, whereas cities tend to. Cities make a lot of money off their traffic, and that's like, look, is it safer? Well, with the exception of the DPS. DPS is looking for a reason to give you a ticket. So doesn't matter what it is.
My uncle gave me the best advice ever when buying cars. You like speeding tickets? No. Don't buy cars that look like this or this color. Buy something. And he wasn't much of a car guy himself, and neither am I, to be completely honest. Buy something reliable, something smart, and has camouflage somewhere in the detail. You don't see the soccer mom cars getting pulled over all the damn time. You see the sports cars, the muscle cars, you know.
I'm going to have a better one for you, which is great. And she actually, so we had this young engineer when I worked at the Army Corps, and she was driving out there. She was at the stop sign, and she gets rear-ended by this cute little blonde. And she was a Bangladeshi girl. The one, our engineer was from Bangladesh, American, but anyway, but she wasn't the cute little blonde. The officer came over, had government plates. It specifically says U.S. government on the back. She went over. They said, well, where's your insurance? She says, I work for the federal government. I don't have to have insurance. They gave her a ticket for everything else. And she's like, oh, hell no. And she's like trying to pull out all the documents. And that officer would not listen. And this was, I think, the city of Irving. Anyway, and she's like, I was at a stop sign. The girl ran into me. And she, anyway, about a month and a half later, she got an apology from the city of Irving for giving her a ticket. But you know, these are sometimes the things that you have to look at, like, why is this going on? Yes, it was. But they would tag her every time, even though she was in a government vehicle, because she was doing stuff in the Dallas levees. They would tag her, and then the rest of us would be, they might flash our lights at us to slow down, like, oh, okay. But I just felt so sorry for her.
So apparently tequila makes Bruce dance.
Ooh.
Yeah, you really don't want to be around for that.
I think I want to with the camera.
I don't need tequila. I just need a woman saying, you want to go dance? Sure, I'll go dance. And you know what? You don't even have to dance well. That's what's so great about it, because you're willing to dance. That puts you in like the top, 20% of men right there.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah, I'm down. This was back in my college days. I'm living down in Champaign in my early 20s. And I will go to this a bar right off of Neal Street in Champaign called Cowboy Monkeys. And it was like samba night, that lost Spanish music, whatever. I go in there because they had really good beer I liked, and I could smoke a cigar, and that's it was close to where I lived. Next thing I know, I got this young little Latina woman coming, grabbing my hand, and I'm out there dancing with her, and it was a good night. Just gotta be able to say yes. And Omen, I was right. You don't have to be good at it. You just gotta be willing. So Abbott, man, that governor of yours,
I don't like Abbott.
I don't like Abbott.
I'm just gonna say I don't like Abbott. I should have started this with I don't like Abbott that much.
I have not liked Abbott either. During COVID, he ran and hid. And then the other problem that I had with Abbott is when we had the big freeze down here.
Yeah.
He had his emergency manager. His emergency manager wasn't the one talking, which tells me there's a problem.
Yep.
Because they did not plan however it was going. But I don't like Abbott, but it's not like they have a viable choice. Really? Beto O'Rourke? No, never going to vote for that man.
We had a viable choice. We had a bunch of them this last primary. And
primaries are where you have to vote. That's what gets me. In Texas, you have to vote in the primaries if you want to switch people. But what I have to laugh at is I've seen people they'll run as the Democrat for 1 year, and then the next, election cycle, they run as a Republican. A lot of times
I don't know if he's a rhino. I think he's incompetent of his fucking job, especially after the Sandy Hook shooting. Jesus.
Sandy Hook wasn't here.
Not Sandy Hook. There was a shooting.
Uvalde?
Yeah.
Well, Uvalde was not. Well, what gets me about that is that goes all over. That goes all the way up to the federal level, all the way down.
His response to it is like, it could have been worse.
Well, my response is how do you have 400 officers and it takes a guy who's off duty to come in to storm the place? That's what gets me. They're like, and I got mad at someone when they're like, well, my husband is a police officer and he could have gotten shot for this. And it specifically says in the training, I've seen the slides. It said, if you are not willing to go forward and put your life, find another career.
Yeah.
I don't know how much.
The moment you put on the shield, you should be willing to put your ass on the line.
Well, here's what gets me about it is this is what the training says. And they've known this since what is it, Sandy Hook, the one in Colorado from
You mean
1997.
Columbine?
Yeah, Columbine, for Columbine. They've known, if you put it on the news, you get more copycats. That's one. So if you glorify it, you get more copycats. That's been well known. It's been in the documents. Number two is if they found out that time is of the essence, and if you're going to do it, you go in at full speed. And they said you go in, and it even says if your partner gets shot, you go forward. You do not tend to them because speed is of the essence. And I will say this much, which a lot of people don't like hearing about. Weatherford has armed teachers. Some other state, and it actually has it on the front. And guess where that person, well, not this one in particular, but one of the other ones, that other one that they just had recently.
There was somebody that they were going to shoot up Weatherford, and they're like, "Oh, wait, never mind. That's a hard target."
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing that comes down to it is, and I've heard people like, I don't want a teacher having guns. No offense. If I can't trust the teacher with a gun, what makes you think I'll trust them around my kid?
Why do I want the teacher around my kid if I can't trust him with a gun?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the litmus test. I want you to be trustworthy, and I'm not asking you to be like, super fucking sniper man, but I do want you to have the character to where when you get the responsibility of all these kids in your classroom, that you are committed to their safety.
Here's the other thing. Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. The other part is that was one. The other thing that I came down to it was, and I found out this with Sandy Hook and a few others. Notice that they always destroy the school as soon as it occurs. Yep. And a lot of that is to protect themselves because the door locks aren't working. All the safety hardening measures that are in the school are not happening. That's what gets me about some of this. But the fact that you had police officers waiting outside. Look, if there are kids in there, it doesn't matter. Go in. Understand that you're going to take this. I don't care. I hate saying this because this sounds terrible. Because, look, if a person is trying to shoot kids, they're not going to stop until you end them. That means that I don't care if you're shooting through the window. They're saying, well, you could shoot some of those kids. Look, this person is not here to negotiate. They're just not. You go in and you start shooting, and sadly you're going to reduce the number of deaths, even if some of them are being killed by the police officers. And but it's not like you can't fire into the ceiling. You can't do some of this other stuff. By the window, like you can't shoot out the window and at least make the guy duck down while having someone else. It's not even that you have to aim at him. Just get him. So the idea is that he thinks bullets are coming directly at him. So he puts his head down. And I will say this much, because this occurred where my friend's mother worked, was look at the murder that happened over in Killeen in 1992.
Are you talking about the Ludi's?
Yes.
Cafeteria? Yeah.
The 92. I was in second grade. I'm a little bit.
That's not the point here. There's my friend's mother went into a restaurant.
My friend's mother worked there. The guy rammed his vehicle in there, came out and shot. And this is what gets me. These people know exactly how many bullets they have, and they shoot until the very last bullet, and then they shoot themselves. That's what gets me. They know that they're going in there to die. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll help you speed your way on your, that's one. The other one that got me was the lady who she got into the state legislature, and she got the rule passed for concealed carry in Texas. She had a gun, but since she was not allowed to bring it in there, she left it in her car. She was a chiropractor, and they always bring her out for this, but she said that she saw her parents being shot in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was mad because if she had a gun, they're like, well, you might not have killed him. She said, no, but it would have changed the calculus. And what I find interesting is if you look at many of these people, if they even get wounded, many times they'll pull the gun on themselves immediately. So, or, a lot of them don't sit there and just shoot, and say, I'm going to go down with this. They get shot once, or in one case, I think it was one of the malls, that a person had a gun. He was retreating, pointed the gun at the shooter. The shooter ran into a stairwell and then shot himself. Because they're doing this their last.
Funny. I mean, it's not funny, but that's funny.
It's their last act of desperation, and they don't want to be caught because they want, the whole world suffers. And this is why I get mad whenever I start seeing this nihilistic attitude. The world isn't worth living. Well, you know what? Fine. Don't take anyone else out with it. That's what I'm asking.
Well, Columbine. I was in high school when Columbine happened. I imagine you and Bruce were way out, not way, but we're out of maybe in college or young adults when
I was
Columbine.
23 and on my day off watching that and listening to the feed on the internet when all that was going on.
So I'm living in Central Illinois. I'm living in Peoria, Illinois.
Tommyville.
East Peoria. I'm living in East Peoria at this
Hey,
point. I'm
Travis.
in East Peoria, which I am at that one point in time. I was considered to be one of the darkest white guys at my school.
And now you're the case as to why we talk about people as to don't go in the house for more than 2 weeks at a time. Because look at you, noble boy.
So I'm in school. This all happens. This goes down. That Columbine was what, on a Thursday or Friday? I can't remember, but it was like the weekend
It was a
came
Thursday.
up. Thursday, all right. There was no school on Friday. This happened in Colorado, not Central Illinois. This did not happen in Chicago, St. Louis, Pickard Major, Springfield, Pickard Major City in Illinois. This happened in Colorado. There was no school Friday. Then that following Monday, me and probably about 5 other guys were asked to come down to the dean's office if we knew anything about the Columbine shootings, and we had any communications with the shooters. You're probably thinking, why? Why would they ask us this question? We fit a personality type that is antisocial. You're not popular. We're not have enough school spirit, one would say.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. I have to pee.
If it is a person coming into school that is not a student, but an outside person coming in, that's absolutely horrifying. But what if it is another student? What is a student that does go there who has, for whatever reason, decides that this is going to be the day that he is going to declare war on the cliques? If the teachers, and I'm not a gun guy, God, anybody who's listened to me long enough knows I'm not a gun guy. But if there was some kind of security there other than 2 fat retired cops and the teachers, maybe shit like this would not happen. Maybe giving teachers a gun, but they have to go through a course. I'm not saying a John Wick shooting course. I'm just saying proper training. Maybe that is the better idea. Maybe there is something to that.
Well, don't get me wrong. I want the teachers trained, but see, here's the interesting thing. I'm not going to mention which place I have, but I've talked to some. Like when I was looking at putting my kids in school, I would talk to some of the county commissioners, because I do talk to some of the. When people say your vote doesn't matter, yes, it does. People, you just have to vote locally, and that's the problem. Is most people think that you have to vote for president. I'm like, you're not changing the president because your vote is 1 in like 200 million or 150 million. But you can change your county commissioner. But the other part is that I was talking to one county commissioner, and his wife was the secretary. Guess what she was packing at the school? So when you walked into the principal's office, she was packing, and you would never suspect it because she's this sweet little young lady. Well, she wasn't young, but
I don't want the teachers to have like. You ever seen those movies or the movies where they have like a little handle on the bottom of the desk? They put the shotgun in and it swivels whatever direction. I'm not saying anything of that nature. I'm not. I mean, but you're right.
No. What I'm saying is that this is the way that I believe that it should be. One is figure out which teachers are willing to protect the kids, which is usually going to be your coaches and stuff like that. You're going to have your vice principals. You're going to have some of them, and then you're going to have some women that are trained that way anyway. But you have some of them. Find the ones that are willing. But here's the thing: if you're a shooter, you don't know who has the gun. So all of a sudden, and this is what happened in this recent shooting from that deranged lady that they keep on saying is being misgendered.
The Tennessee thing, yeah.
Okay,
that happened. I mentioned that in chat. The whole scenario lasted 6 minutes. I need to talk to a few people who actually live in Nashville to get more into it. But yeah, anyways.
Here's the other thing that gets into it, and this is what I'm going to mention about it. The other aspect is apparently she was looking at other schools, and they did have armed guards there, and she decided to bypass them. See, these people are looking for kill counts. If they're going for kill counts, they're looking for the place that are least defended. That's what I always get mad at, is everyone acts like, oh, well, you know what? If someone wants to do killing, they're not going to go to the most heavily armed areas. They're just not. They're going to go for the areas that are most vulnerable. And if you're going after kids, guess who, that's exactly who you're going for, is the most vulnerable.
I'm not saying give every teacher a gun. I
didn't say that. I said,
know you didn't. I'm just like going through the devil's advocate that I have, even on my own shoulder. Because there's certain people out there that just don't have it in them. I mean, murdering somebody, I'm not murdering, killing another human is not a natural. You don't wake up on Monday and say, I'm going to get some groceries, I'm going to go run, and I'm going to shoot 5 people. That normal person doesn't think that way.
Now, I've talked to and almost all those teachers that go there do get the proper training. They get the training in there. The police are more than willing to train, these people looking at multi-gunmen. That's what goes on to it. But the other aspect is, and I hate saying this, is there are some people who are not physically capable. If you have the 80-year-old teacher, she may be a great old teacher. I'm not sure I really want her, if she has a little bit of
a gun and she breaks her wrist.
Yeah, well, I mean, if she's got a little bit of palsy or something, okay, that's fine. But but at the end of the day is, I don't know, not that she has to go out there, but if you're locking the doors, which, to be fair, all classrooms should have locks in them where the teachers can lock it from the inside. That's what gets me about it. And many of these, like Sandy Hook, did not. That's what gets, or Uvalde did not either. That's the other part that gets me about it.
It should be a one-way lock. You could walk out and the door locks behind you. It shouldn't be a lock. You should be able, if you're in the classroom, you should be, for fire reasons alone, the door should never be locked or barred where the student could not get out of the room.
As a kid, and I'm going to say this when I was going through this, which was over here where I lived, which was in the same county I lived, they have the locks. You know how it is, where they could set it either where it locks behind you, where if it closes, you can't turn it without the key from the outside, but from the inside, you can still turn the handle. Or they would have it where it was just unlocked from both sides. I'm not saying that, but my point is that the lock should still be there, that the teacher inside can lock the room if there is this incident. Number one. Number two is, and this is, I've looked at some things, they should be going around making sure that the doors are completely locked and shut. And then the other part is, if the teacher's in there and she can have all the kids huddled behind her, she can say, you know what, the room is locked down. Anyone that comes through that door, I'm shooting, because they're going to have to do some things in there. But yeah.
I mean, fuck.
Yeah.
I got a few friends that work for private security, they're former vets, the old, they go, once you're done with your military career, you can go to the private sector.
Sure.
Anyway, one of them lives out in Vegas, and he's been joking around. Me and him have been talking about it. He's like, I'm thinking about offering my services to private schools. I'm like, why private schools? Because they could pay better. But he's already putting the thought process together. It's like, hey, I can have 15 or 5, whatever number of people at these private schools as security, and whatever. There is, not saying that there's money to be made, but if there's this guy who is very money oriented, which more power to him, I guess, who's already thinking, hey, this could be a feasible thing to offer.
Look at what happened with the church. There were 2 church incidents here in Texas. One of them, guy pulled out a gun. He killed one of the guys with the gun, but the congregation was armed, and they took him out within, it was like 5 seconds. It was very, very fast. 5 seconds from the time he pulled the gun until he was shot dead. And one of the churchgoers was dead. But guess what? That stopped the whole thing. The other one was NRA firearms instructor who came out with the AR-15 to take out the guy in the body armor. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to be using a gun, you should be trained with it. You should know how to unload it, load it. You should know how to carry it safely. That's not the real problem. The reality of it is, everyone wants to say, oh, you're going to be gung-ho. Look, if I can just shelter in place, that's fine. I don't need to go out there. Let the police, that's what they get paid for. Let them do room clearing. That's all these people want to be, oh, I'm going to be big. Well, you know what? It's hard enough to tell who's your friend or foe. I'm just going to shelter in place. And if I was a teacher, I would shelter in place in the classroom, and anyone that comes to that door, I would, if they're going through it until I'm told, over the PA or whatever, all is safe from whoever's there. I'm holding it down, and anyone comes to that door, I'm putting them down. And that's what you should do if you're a teacher. You don't have to be that well trained. That's about it. Is you need to know how to handle it safely. You need to make sure that, I don't care if it's a level 3, as long as you practice enough that you can pull it out of the holster within a couple of seconds. Everyone's like, oh, you have to go real fast. Look, if you're in a school,
have it be in one of the fucking drawers, because it won't take, bam, boom. I don't know. I don't know what the right.
Here's the reason I said it, and people don't want to hear this. If it's on your person, the kids have to get it off of you. If it's in a drawer, and you know how kids are, they can access that a lot easier. And that's the reason that I'd rather have it on the person. I remember having this discussion with some guys when we were talking about UT, and they're all freaking out. Well, why don't you just put it in a book bag? I said, because someone can take your book bag, you moron. If they're going to take it off me as a physical person, they have to fight me at least.
Right. Yeah, but if the teacher's laying on the ground dead, a lot of people are not going to be comfortable squirming around a dead person's body. It's once again, it comes back to the unnaturalness of it.
Well, but I hate saying this. Is I have a bunch of kids. I'm not really sure that I want my 6 and 7-year-olds starting to rummage through my body.
But one of those high school teachers, one of those high school students is already going to be a better shot than a teacher. Living in states where Texas or Tennessee, where hunting is a thing.
Well, I'm going to say this. I mean, some of it just comes down to look. It's even if 10% of the teachers are armed, or let's assume that let's assume that 10% of the staff, that might be 3 or 4 people with guns. Well, guess what? If you're coming to attack the school, you don't know which 3 or 4 people have those guns. That's what it's really is. It's meant as a deterrent. And we can talk about all these, train. Again, all I have to do is most firefights are within 7 yards. In fact, they're within 7 yards. I think it's 40% are within 8 feet. If you're in a classroom, again, you shelter in place and you protect your kids. That's all you have to do. You don't, everyone wants to go act like you're gung-ho. Let the SWAT team deal with that.
Yeah, let the SWAT team deal with that shit. They're the ones who are supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to go into the school.
Yeah. So, that's, but that's the way that it comes in. Just like everyone talks about, well, it's great. Well, you know what? Your trigger control counts more than your gun on how well you hit for the most part. But again, if the person comes in, it's 7 yards is close. You can usually hit some part of the body. And these people, if they're wounded, are either going to retreat, shoot themselves for the most part. These are not, very few of them.
Most gun training trains the person to shoot center mass, aim for the biggest target.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at it, is okay. If you try hitting around.
Well, some people's center masses are bigger than others. Yeah.
Well, I know, but but everyone acts like you have to shoot the eye. Well, here's what I want everyone to do: is I want you to go out. I want you to run at top speed until your heart beats at like 200 beats per minute, and now go shoot while it's that high, and seeing how well you shoot. Because that's what's really going to happen once that adrenaline kicks in. So
see, there was a gunner's mate on the McCandless that whenever it came time, there's one drill you have to do for your shooting quals that you have to shoot with your offhand. And you have to go through the full magazine.
Okay.
Well, before that, Gunner Houston, that was his name, fucking American name as it ever comes. Gunner Houston is like, all right, all you kids, everybody get down and just give me 25 push-ups right now. As fast as you can do them. The faster you get done, quicker you can shoot. And so we get down. I'm just fresh out of boot camp. No big deal. I stand up. And he's like, "Don't shoot with your right hand. Shoot with your offhand." Fuck. He's like, "Shoot with your left. Shoot with your left hand and shoot now. The entire clip as fast as you can." Fuck. That destroyed. I was in the solid 94 percentile, and that dropped me down to 84.
Well, I have to laugh because when we were going to Afghanistan, we were training with the MPs. Who, oddly enough, went to Kuwait. But so we were doing that. Well, most of us were in our late 30s or up to our 50s for the most part. And we outshot all the MPs. And it was like, what do you mean? I said, most of us have been shooting for 20 plus years. The MPs have been shooting for 1 or 2. Okay. Yeah, it was disconcerting, especially if you have to wear a helmet and stuff like that. Everyone, it's not like going to the range, but at the end of the day, look, all I have to do is just put enough rounds over there. And I remember talking to a police officer. He was retired. He said almost all police officers, when they're like, well, how can you shoot 15 rounds? He said they shoot until the clip is empty or the magazine is empty or into the revolver. He said when they were using revolvers, they shot 6 rounds on average. And when they were using when they used the 9mm, they were shooting 15. They just kept firing because they didn't realize when it stopped.
I mean, I've gone to a gun range in the last year probably 3 different times.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. I'm not a gun guy, but it's fun. It's a good
Sure.
way to, yeah, a friend's like, hey, let's go. I'm like, why not? I'd rather spend my time, if I'm going to go to a range, to go and be an archery range. That's kind of where my bag is. But training is training. If it is for archery, it's one thing. If it's for guns, it's another one. And it's not a bad thing to have proper training in, whatever your interest is.
The other part is, as much as we talk about this, and that's why I hate the word gun violence, because 2/3 of that is suicides. And yet our suicide rate is pretty similar to a lot of the other industrialized world. And so whenever it's like, no, people use guns because they're available. When they're in Korea, I think they use, I think in like Britain, it's natural gas. In Korea, it's like poison. But the rates of suicide are pretty comparable, interestingly enough. So I look at it that way. But, again, the problem that I have with it is, and this is why I took my son out there, you need to know how to, put on safety. The basic rules: don't point anything you don't want to shoot at or destroy is what they call it. The gun is always loaded. If you see someone handling a gun and you're a kid, you see another kid handling a gun, go tell an adult. There's a lot of the basic, and this is what the NRA teaches, and yet you don't hear this in school. One of the best things I ever did was I took my son to the gun range, paid an instructor, which wasn't it was like $90 or something. She spent an hour with him to go over the rules. So it wasn't just me or his mom telling him these rules. There's the it's not that hard. And guess what? I completely removed any mystique of the gun. He can go anytime. And guess what he wants to do? Daddy, it's too loud. I don't want to go to the range. Okay. But you know what? I'm not worried about him. He's not the worst ones that they had was anyone watched that thing that they did in Dallas with the kids? So that they did a one-way mirror.
Yeah.
They put a group of 20 kids in there, and they put in a blue gun, basically, where they put it in there, and they left it in there. And then they put the parents behind this one-way mirror. And the kids didn't realize this, and the kids were playing. The only kids that did not touch the gun, and the kids were like looking at it, like looking down the barrel, pointing at other kids. The only kids who did not touch that were the kids that had grown up around guns. So this whole idea that somehow having kids learn about guns will make them into gun fanatics, no, it makes them safe. And if they are a gun fanatic, then they're a safe gun fanatic. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know. This was an old study. I know this has to be an old study. They're saying if kids never see guns on TV or their comic books, they will have no interest of pretending that they're shooting guns at their friends. Then they went to, I don't know where it was, somewhere where guns were a prominent things, but they're still picking up sticks and acting like they're guns, even though the kids have no idea what a gun was. So it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know where the right answer is. There is.
Well, here's what's interesting, because these school shootings and stuff tend to be a new phenomenon. Not necessarily where I was, but I remember hearing everyone talk about when they went to high school during hunting season, people had rifles in the back of their trucks.
Oh yeah.
And they were just back there with the gun racks. And so obviously it's not the gun that's doing it, because we didn't have this problem before. The other point that I can think of is this is the thing that...
Is it new though?
Hmm?
Is school shootings new? Because I remember hearing ones back in the 70s. The sniper
I
up
don't remember the first recorded school shooting, but the one that really hit it off that I can think of is going to be Dylan Klebold and the other loser that shot up Columbine.
Columbine's where it really came out, but then the other thing was, you're talking about the University of Texas shooter as well, which was new.
Yeah.
What was interesting is, and people aren't talking about this, but bystanders on the street apparently were shooting at the guy in the bell tower.
Nice.
I mean, this was the other, and there's several instances in this. A lot of it is, I think, that I'm not trying to knock it, but I noticed that people in big cities expect the government to protect them. And in small cities, they know that it can't occur. And I remember having this discussion with someone. He was a former police chief of the crash unit, which I'm not sure why they would have hired him. But anyway, that's what they were doing with that's who the government hired. But one of the things that was talking about, he got mad because he was like, "Oh, you know what? Civilians shouldn't have a gun," and blah, blah, blah. Why? I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Oh, you're one of those people." I said, "Like where my ex is. It's 15 minutes at 70 miles an hour to get to her, where the police are. If she calls the police, if they start off from where their station is, it is about 15 minutes to get to her place." I said, "Oh, really? And what is the average response time for police?" That's the other problem that we're talking about, is average response time for police is what, 4 to 7 minutes?
Yep.
And that shooting was 6 minutes, which means you have to have someone on site, whether you want to stop it or not. And the other problem I have is like, well, we're going to remove guns from law-abiding citizens. Law-abiding citizens aren't the ones usually breaking the crime. It's criminals that are tending to do this. It's one of these things that I look at is, but that's the problem with it is like, okay, if you can guarantee me that you can get protection. But here's the other one that no one wants to talk about is, I believe is it Castle Rock versus Gonzalez?
I think so.
That the police or the government has no obligation to protect you as an individual. If someone's breaking into your house and you call them up, they can go, "Sorry, we can't send anyone. You're on your own." And they cannot be sued for that.
If the government thinks you have too many guns, you got a Ruby Ridge.
Well, but guess what? Who won that lawsuit for Ruby Ridge? Randy Weaver, which, by the way, that was one of them that was represented by Gary Spence. The FBI, they were found to be guilty of that.
Huh.
They were found to be guilty of going in there. The U.S. government was in the wrong. So it's not the issue. When people say Ruby Ridge, let's talk about the other one, which is Waco, right up here, where the ATF, they said, "Oh, well, we're going to do this." No, they went in there with force to kill people, basically. And I don't care if they like to hear that or not, but I listened to people in Waco. They said he used to go out for tacos on certain days, and he would go running outside of his compound. If they wanted him, they could have had him at any time they wanted, but they wanted to make a show of force. And apparently they went in and, let's see, you go into a doomsday cult that says the government's coming after you. You bring in 77 agents to attack the doomsday cult. All you're doing is reinforcing their belief that the government is coming to kill them.
Yeah, you're not helping out the situation when you do that. And then
the other part is how many people were burned? And then how much did the FBI lie? Oh, the gas grenades don't start fires. I mean, you don't have to like Alex Jones, but Alex Jones has been right far more times than the local media has, or the national news has.
And the 90s seemed just to be fucking explosive fucking decade. I mean, everything between the woman who cuts off her husband's penis and throws out the car, to O.J. Simpson, to Ruby Ridge, Waco, Texas, and what was that cannibal? God damn, what was that cannibal's name?
Jeffrey Dahmer?
Jeffrey
When the
Dahmer.
14-year-old
Okay,
boy
so-
at Ruby Ridge, when the 14-year-old boy Weaver Jr. saw his dog get shot, and he starts blasting, and the cops just responded back with absolute lethal force, killing him.
Federal marshals. I think that one federal marshal was killed there, and the boy was killed as well.
Yeah.
And then they shot Randy Weaver's wife, and no one's is going to say on who gave the authorization to shoot her, because apparently she was holding a baby at the time, and she did not have her hand on a gun, so that did not make her. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a reason Gary Spence won that, and they were talking about defunding a lot of the FBI, which is what they probably should do. But
I go through the Senate after the House.
But here's the other one: it's if you're going to talk about that, and people talk about safety, and I like looking at crime statistics, and especially the ones that live in Europe. And they're talking, well, we don't believe in guns. Can you explain to me why you had a lower murder rate in 1905 than you do today, even though you had few, if any, restrictions on guns? I like looking at these statistics, and I said, okay, so obviously something changed in society, rather than than that. The other one that was, I don't know if you guys have looked at, what is it, Ecuador, where they rounded up and locked up all of those criminal gang members. Tell me what their rate of violence is. Their rate of violence plummeted. I mean, because they put away a lot of these. The 3 strikes and you're out. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of them is, to me, that should be for violent felonies. There should be certain things in there. But yeah. I'm not saying why. I'm just saying that some of it is because I think governments want to have the high crime because it allows them to justify taking away people's rights.
Yep.
There's more money in it. There's bigger the violence. Human species has always been violent. Let's not kid ourselves. We've never really, that's not a new thing. We've always been violent. Our ways of killing each other has, like technology and evolution, has gone up with every new invention, from the stick to the blade to an arrow to a gun to, I don't know, having kids do the Tide Pod challenge a couple of years ago.
I'm not saying that human beings are not violent. Don't get me wrong. I've been to Cambodia, and if you want to look at, and I've walked, and this is what people forget about is when they start hearing this. I have been to Cambodia and I've been to Dachau, over in Germany. So I've been to some of these places. Now I haven't been to any of the. I think I was what is it? Was it Sector 17? Anyway, where there's one of them, but there's a killing school, and people forget just how violent they are. And this is what I have the problem with when I start hearing all this rhetoric. Ooh, these are so evil. And so, this is how you get the Hutu and Tutsi aspect in there. Is when you start demonizing your fellow Americans because they don't agree with you politically. I said, there's nothing good that comes from that, because because once people get a bloodlust, and this is the problem that I have with mobs, if it's okay if one person in the mob does it, then the mob reacts for it because it removes some of it. And I'm not saying, people talk about all this stuff, but here's the other thing that happened in the 1990s. What happened at the very beginning of the 1990s?
Assault rifle bill.
No. Before that,
I don't know.
the Soviet Union disintegrated.
Oh yeah.
And so what happened with the news? The news used to talk, because I remember being in Germany when I was a kid in the 1980s. All of the news, CBS, NBC, everything else, it was all international. They talked about the international. Well, all of a sudden, when that went away for the Cold War, what did they start reporting on? They started reporting on local news stories. And so all of a sudden, everything became nationalized from the local news perspective. And that's the problem where I have with some of these things. And I said, okay, do police need reformation? Yes, there needs to be police reform, but it needs to be proper police reform. Not this, what they're saying of, we're just going to defund. I said, no, what we should have is I think every police officer should have a body camera for number one. I think police officers should be learning how to de-escalate. Yeah. Well, the sad thing is everyone, this is what I have to laugh at. Look at the Battle of Cannae. The Battle of Cannae, what was it? I think that the Romans say anywhere from 60 to 80,000 people died in one day.
Okay.
Show me one battle where they had the same number of deaths in one day in the last 100 years.
The only thing that qualifies is going to be D-Day. Battle of
Even
Omaha.
D-Day didn't
Hill?
have those level of casualties.
Really?
Civil War, Hamburger Hill.
Hamburger Hill was only a few hundred. Civil War was 150 years ago.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
it's
That's
100
beyond
years.
that.
I mean, maybe the Battle of Somme or the Battle of Verdun, but I can't think. Even they, I think, went on for months. And it was usually 600,000. But I always have to laugh when people talk about guns. I said, well, if you notice, the casualty rates tend to be a lot lower when you start involving people with guns because they tend to spread out more. And so now you don't get the same number of casualties you did. But look at what happened with the Hutu and Tutsis. How many people were killed? And those weren't done by guns. Those were done by people with machetes. It was half a million? Half a million in 2 months?
I use a machete at my job and have to have it in the truck with me. My boss hates it. He's like, I want you to not use that. I want you to take that and put it in your car. Well, my machete comes in handy whenever I have to cut roots or other things. And more importantly, like I've had people like try to brake check me on the fucking 35 going into downtown.
Sure.
And if I start to engage the parking brake, this isn't really good, but you engage the parking brake and somebody's stepping out of their car, I grab that machete and I'm ready to bolt towards them. They see the fucking big long thing in my hand and they get the hell out because everybody and their brother thinks like, oh, a pistol's not going to hurt me. But you see a fucking machete in somebody's hand and it changes your entire perspective. I need my limbs. And so I've not had a confrontation escalate past the presence of it yet. I'm happy.
I mean, I don't want to have to do this, but that's the thing is if you feel threatened, I'm like, look, he's got a machete. That's why I shot him. There's certain times when we're just talking, going back to the whole thing. If you're carrying a weapon, even if you're justified or you're like, okay. Yeah. That's the one problem that I have with it. But I found it funny when I was talking to people from the Northeast, New Hampshire, things like that. And one person around the Chicago area. And they come to Texas. And they talk about how aggressive a driver are and how, I was honking my horn and blah, blah, blah. And she says, and this was one girl, I would drive down and do this. She said, I come to Texas and I'm afraid to do that. I said, oh, really? So an armed society is polite society. That was one. And then there was another guy that did the same thing. He's like, I'm afraid they're going to shoot me. I said, they're only going to shoot you if you try carjacking them. So if you don't plan on carjacking, you're going to be okay, just fine. But the mystique of everyone having guns, and here's what I really have to laugh at. Look at the percentage. Which has a higher percentage of concealed carry, or at least, Florida or Texas?
Florida has a better average.
Florida has a higher percentage.
Well,
they have a huge average for that.
I think Ron DeSantis is about ready to pass a bill saying if you want a gun, go out and buy one. You don't need a license or anything.
Well, it's what the Second Amendment says.
Oh, I get you.
You're not to be regulated on it, and that means that if you can afford the price of ammunition for a bar, you should be able to have a bar. If that's the gun you want to defend yourself with, go for it.
I've always joked around with some of these laws are getting passed. Like there's no laws on the book saying I can't walk down the street with one of my swords strapped to my back.
Some of them
they have a law here in Texas. Any size blade can be carried openly.
I thought it was 5 inches, but I'm not sure what it is. But
no, it's any size blade. You could carry a naginata if you want to, which is why I have a machete.
Well, I've been left. Go ahead.
I've been trying to find a way to carry one of my bows on my side where it's not like just awkward, because the modern day bows are not like the English longbows where you can just like strap it to your back and walk. I have like a breakdown bow. I have a Boy Scout bow. I call it Boy Scout bows because it's a bow that long bow that all Boy Scouts use. It's, and a compound bow. And so I'm gonna just get myself a quiver, find a way to hang the one of my bows off my hip. I'm just gonna walk down the street with that, see if anybody says anything.
Well, the other part that comes down to it is I remember being in Chicago, and there are a couple things. One is I think I was on travel and I came back, and they talked about someone being attacked with a machete like 2 blocks away from where I lived. I said, look, I've lived in the countryside. Usually if someone got shot, it was personal, but by the sounds of it, what it was is I guess some guy was a gang member and he was looking at, getting his stripes or whatever. So he did that. The other thing is that, well, Bruce, I don't try brake checking people. I just, I don't get too mad at the things, like, fine, whatever you want to do.
I will slow down intentionally so you can go deal and be an asshole to traffic in front of me.
Oh, yeah.
Well, aren't you normally driving around in a great big shit tank?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving you as much space as you fucking need.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like, I don't know how safe that truck really is. If I have to like do an evasive maneuver, I'm just going to try to brake instead and let something happen because I would roll the truck.
I'm going to bring this up.
When it's on the road.
Bruce, you don't even have to pull out the machete. You just have to bring it out where you can spray them.
The problem is that for me to spray them, I have to park the truck, put it in and place in neutral, engage the PTO, run back, undo the hoses, and fit the 4-inch over the 4-inch discharge. And hopefully they're still trying to be an idiot, as I've got now a charged hose, and I'm trying to handle a hose, a 3-incher one-handed, which is not good. It's going to be spray all over.
Well, the problem is people don't actually know how your scorpions work or whatever you call them. They don't know how they work. All you have to do is bring out a hose and say, you really don't want to come any closer. And they're just like, all right, man.
I don't know what's more scary, the concept of somebody taking a swing at me with a machete or getting covered in other people's shit. I mean,
I'd rather get hit with a machete.
Yeah.
Every day.
But, there's the psychological aspect, like you're talking, Bruce, with the gun versus other stuff. The other one was I used to like having the dog with me because, it's like, look, I only had a 50-pounder, but it was enough. People like, I don't want to mess with you because, like, look, the dog's on the leash, and I remember doing that one time. Someone was screwing with my neighbor. It was like 2 a.m. I went out there. I was like, what's going on? And I knew that the lady's husband was on maneuvers with my father. I went out the door, and they hopped in their truck and drove away. And then I talked to her the next day, and they're like, oh, yeah, they were. But you don't know what people are doing out there. And, but it was weird because they turned off the lights, but you could see the brake lights every time. And they had one of the automatic lights that would come on. And I don't know if they were looking for it. Oh, speaking of which, let me put this up here. Let me see if I can find it. This is my favorite thing with the, we all have to laugh at this one.
I can go for a good laugh.
Let me see. Let's see if I can find it. It happened a few years ago. I'm trying to make sure I have the good video of it because a lot of times they truncate it, and it's not as good as like the one that's like a couple minutes long. Because really, that's the problem I have with it is they don't show the whole video; they cut it out. I'm like, we're on the internet at this point in our lives. You can show the whole thing. Let's see if I can. Let's see.
Yeah, Travis, I tried just to let them go past me.
Yeah.
My truck is slow anyway. It's got I think an injector fucked up, so I'm not accelerating super fast. And unless I have a downhill wind and a wind on my ass, and I might hit 63 miles per hour. Woo!
Yep. So Bruce, you might enjoy watching this one. This is a home invasion, and then this is what happened when they came out. And that's one angle. I was trying to see if I can find the other angle. But basically, 3 men break into this home. and they're all armed with guns, and it gets pretty funny at the end. And you know, it's one thing when we're big, like I'm over 6 foot. You know, I can be, you know, that's most people don't mess with me just because of the sheer size. It's not that, you know, anything else, but oh, here we go. This will be a fun one.
Oh, here we go. I'm gonna do something stupid.
All right, got 3.
Okay.
What do they got going on here?
They have another angle, but they basically kick in the door and go in here. But this is the good angle to see. But yeah, the very beginning of it from a different angles, they kicked the door in and went in there.
We got something over here.
Oh, paper towels. This must be a business.
This must be 2020, 2021.
This was 2016.
Oh, God.
Now, I don't know if you see the guy when he ran through. He actually ran through the window, the back over there. Oh, you'll see it here in a second.
Okay.
I'm sorry. But I want you to also look at the kitchen window when one of them starts running, or the kitchen door.
Oh shit!
Yep.
Get him! Oh god!
He
Oh, God.
right through the window. Right through the glass.
Okay, so whenever someone says about guns and about this, you tell me how that woman would have handled it if she was by herself without a pistol, because that's not a big Asian woman.
120 pounds at best.
Wait. Is somebody still in there?
140 pound male.
Yeah.
Apparently, she killed one of them, by my understanding.
Good.
But
That guy won't do that again.
well, yeah.
Who was that? Who was that kid?
But no, she was on the phone. But that's what I have to laugh at is you know, there were three armed men broke into her home, and she came out blasting. I mean, that's what I have to laugh at. If you want to re-roll that again, that's still great. You know, there's
a life lesson in this video.
You know, what was the saying that they said is God created man and Colton made them equal.
I'm digging this.
You know, and there are 3 armed men that have broken into your house. This is, you know, they have guns in their hand. You can see it.
Oh, there she comes. Oh, first shot. Did he
I
just
love
shoot
that.
right over her head?
I'm not sure what I think he was. See, that's the thing that people forget about is panic. You know.
Yeah.
You know, she. And then of course her husband comes out, or whoever, boyfriend or whatever, and notice that she has nothing left in that pistol. You know but yeah. But I have to laugh because that guy was in such a panic, he ran through the door. You know, that glass door. Yeah, so killing one of the suspects is what they said.
That's awesome. I wish more home invasions ended like that.
I guess I went out with a date with one very liberal one. We were talking about it, and I said, "Look, if someone tries breaking my house and I yell, and I hear them trying to get out of my house, I said I don't care. You're out of my house, not a big deal. You were there to rob me. You're afraid. You've left. Good, cool. But if you stay when I've identified myself being in the house, you're not there for any good reason. You're not there to just steal things. You're there to cause me injury. And at that point, you know, game on." You know, that sounds terrible, but that's what people forget about. It's like, no.
Was it during the riots in LA, the Korean neighborhoods? There's videos I've seen of Koreans armed. I mean, not
Roof Koreans? That's where the term roof Korean comes from.
Koreans, yeah.
Roof Koreans are badass. They're our friends.
Well, here's the thing. Why did they do that?
Because
Canada.
people were breaking into the shops.
Because the LA Police Department said we are going to let them riot in these neighborhoods, and they decided not to enter it while the riots were occurring.
One of them just happened. Oh Jesus!
So that's what happened in '92. Is when the riots kicked off, they said, you know what? Anything, I think it was south of a certain area, and basically they said these neighborhoods we're just not going in. We're going to let them riot in those neighborhoods. And if you're stuck in those neighborhoods, who's going to protect you? That's the thing that no one really wants to talk about. Is like, okay, when the police decide not to protect you, which has numerous occasions, whether it's Kyle Rittenhouse or whether it happened in the LA riots, who will protect you? The other part is, and I lived several years in Florida. When a hurricane comes in, there is no government control for a few days or weeks. And we saw the exact same thing during Andrew, where people were on top of the buildings with rifles. And if they didn't know who you were, they would warn you off. It's like, you don't play around with them. You know, this is why they have a good community.
Katrina down in Louisiana, New Orleans.
Now, you get that, but the other part is, and this is what I hate with them all talking about, because I talk to people, is, and I remember Bruce probably remembers this, during Harvey, or what was there was another one before then. Maybe was it Imelda or after Imelda? Do you remember the Cajun Navy?
I remember that. I remember that.
So the Cajun Navy was basically a bunch of
Texans and Louisiana people.
Yeah, all they did was they drove down there, they got on their boats and started rescuing people. And they didn't care what race you were. And yet, they want to bring up this, oh, it's so racist. No one had to help you out, and yet this is why I get so mad at government, is because it's them that wants us to fight with each other, not anyone else. That's, who's screwing you over? It's the people in power. The people in power don't want everyone to get along because then they realize how much they're screwing us. That's right. Well, I know Misa lives out in the countryside. People forget about this. They think that the police are right around the door. Well, that's true in some areas, but a lot of areas, call them up and see how long it takes to arrive. What's the average police response time?
Right.
And I want you to sit down and just time yourself at some point. Just have your friend walk in the door and say, okay, he's going to walk real slow, and he's going to try finding you in the house. You tell me in how long 4 minutes feel, especially if you have your kid.
Jesus.
Sorry, I don't mean to scare you there, Conall. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
I live in a small apartment. It won't take much for somebody to find me in my apartment if they're wishing me ill.
Yeah.
As I'm locking my apartment door.
I
like my neighbor. I have a neighbor across the hall I really like.
Well, I like my neighbors too, but I've lived in some areas where they're banging on my door, and I'm like, I'm not opening the door if I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Period. I don't have to do that. That said, as I live on the second floor, you have to go up some stairs. I can throw some kettlebells down that floor. Good luck. I'm sure only like 1 or 2 kettlebells. You're like, this isn't worth it. I don't care if it's the light ones. I don't care if it's the ones that are only 10 kilograms. When those 20s start coming over, good luck.
I will agree that there has been some kind of atmosphere change. I don't know what it is, not atmosphere, but there has been a change in society. We've always been a violent species.
Sure.
Always have. But it seems like, I'm not going to say it's religious reasons. I'm not going to say it's, a sexual orientation reasons. But it seems like something has gotten into the water and people, what was it? The Batman movie came out with Heath Ledger and the guy dressed up as a fucking clown and shoot up a fucking theater.
And what was the first thing he looked for the theaters when he was going around? The ones that wouldn't allow concealed carry.
Right.
That's what gets me about this. Is that's the there's this mentality that we all have to be victims. And this is the one thing, you know, it's funny whenever people talk about feminists. Well, look, if you're a first wave feminist, fine. Second wave feminist, but these third and fourth wave feminists want to be victims, and then they want everyone else to be victims. And I said, and it seems like our government wants people to be victims. And I said, no, it's very different if, you know, for how this goes out is now, you know, when I was in Chicago, we had these discussions, and, you know, unfortunately the girl I really liked did not share my opinions. And so
it happens that way.
I know. But I was nice about it. But I was asking certain questions because I love doing statistics. Here's something that people don't realize, and I know things have changed, but in 2013, 2014, who had a higher crime rate, the United States or England? England. Who had a higher violent crime rate? So I was comparing aggravated assault to assault with injury.
Assault over there.
Assault with injury. Assault with injury was twice as high as it was here in the United States for aggravated assault. Now, I'm not saying everything's exactly the same, but I said, okay, let me get rid of just assaults, but I'll just do assault with injury versus aggravated assault because I think that's a fair assumption. So really, the United States was only higher than they were. Well, you know, again, if in small countrysides you have one police officer, you might have a small sheriff's department, and they'll come in after the fact. I hate saying it. They're just kind of like, we'll get there. Do what you have to take care of yourself. That's what the police will tell you out here. You know, depending on where you are. Now, that said, is the where I lived, at one point, I had a police officer living directly beneath me. I have like 4 police officers living in my area. You know, here it's not like I don't have a lot of it, but you know, but like where my son lives, there's no one out there to, you know, there are a few neighbors that she would have to call that could maybe make it out there. And
right.
I'm like, look, I'm glad you have a gun. And if nothing else is, you know, this is the other part of people talking about this, you know, city versus country. Okay, you got raccoons, you got skunks, you've got hawks, you have
Rattlesnakes.
Rattlesnakes. Well, yeah, rattlesnakes got a couple of furs. You got copperheads, you've got bobcats, and sometimes you do have coyotes. You have a lot of coyotes, which people don't realize just how common they are and where they're found. You have coyotes, and then you also have mountain lions, which are the same as cougars and all these others. But anyway, those are all the same. But the people forget about it, like, okay, and then you do have some wild dogs. What's going to happen? The other thing that comes down to it is, what are you going to do if your animal's foundering? And I just thought it was funny. Well, you can call a vet. Well, most vets aren't making house calls that often. And if you know the animal's going to die, you pull out a gun and you shoot it in the head. You know, if people can talk about being humane. Well, why don't you just do this? Well, first off, how much is a bullet? A bullet, if you're getting one of the expensive ones, is about $4. And how much is a vet call? $100 plus? Plus the vet will take an hour or two to get out where you are. Yeah, it's just easier to put down, a foundering horse or something like that if you need to.
Right.
Yeah, but I thought it was funny because, you know, I've worked in a few areas and guys had AR-15s. I said, look, it's a government project. I just want you to put the gun out of sight and we'll pretend like I didn't see anything. It's like, okay. But the other thing is since I work on dams, I'll tell you the little buggers that are getting everything. Oh, here's the other thing. In Texas, what else do we have? We have alligators. Yes, you do, Chimerian. You use what you have.
Oh, speaking of alligators and big animals like that, I just found here recently. I don't know many of you guys watched that thing on Netflix about the Tiger King, Joe Exotic?
Yeah.
He accused.
We've heard of it.
He accused a woman of murdering her husband. Well, they found the bastard has been living like in Puerto Rico or somewhere like for the last 15 years or 20 years. I'm like, son of a bitch! That was such a great story. Now you have to use real facts to ruin it.
Wait, they found him alive?
Yeah, he's alive.
Really? I didn't realize because I saw what was his name? I was watching Eric Hunley.
Yeah.
I like watching some of these other stuff like Viva Fry, Robert Barnes. But Eric Hunley had it, and he was interviewing what was her name, Carol Baskins or whatever her name is.
Yeah. I mean, she's fucking nuts, but she's not guilty of murder.
Well, they were interviewing her, and she was saying what she thought had happened. I didn't realize they found him alive recently, but
Yeah.
oh wow. But apparently he had Alzheimer's. There were a few other things that were going on with him, but she has been a big advocate for removing pet tigers, because, and this was her point, and I don't fully disagree with it, is people are bringing them out and then trying to use them as pets. And then the other aspect is that they get too big or they abandon them or they abuse them. And everyone wants to take pictures of them as cubs.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't. And I said, okay, I don't disagree with her on that. But I will say as much, alligators are, I've been a few places where I've seen 12-foot alligators. And you're like, well, those are pretty big. And the problem is whenever you take a picture of them, they never look that big. You have to have some scale of reference. But that was over in near Jasper, Texas.
Where's
That's
that?
north of Houston, right? If I remember right.
It's like northeast. If you know where Sam Rayburn is.
Yep.
It's just south of that. I used to go there for there's a dam called Town Bluff by the Army Corps of Engineers, and the alligators would just sun themselves. And because it's federal property, they don't allow a lot of hunters there. You have to do specialty rules for it. Usually, it's disabled veterans that are able to go hunt them. So,
I got a question.
I love the rules for disabled veteran hunting. You can take a blind guy with a crossbow out hunting. It's fucking crazy.
Oh, I forgot wild pigs. Wild pigs are another issue that I have.
Nuisance animal.
Yep.
Sorry, my brain just like tumbled over when he said, "Yeah, you can take a blind man out with the crossbow." I'm like, wait, what?
Yes, you can. It's a legal thing.
It is a legal and a treasured thing. If you tell your buddies that you're doing that, like you're going to have a crew of people wanting to hop in the truck with you. Come on, Stan, how you feel about hunting today? Pretty good. What do you see? Not a goddamn thing.
I mean,
he have to shoot. I mean, does a blind guy technically have to make the killing shot?
Yep.
Or
Yeah. So what
You don't handle the gun for him. He handles the crossbow himself.
Yeah, what they'll do is they'll go through it, and he can be like 90 years old in a wheelchair, can barely see. They'll hold the gun for him. They'll put him on like a stand. It's kind of as good as you can get for him.
It's like watching Biden get led around a press conference.
I mean, he's not wrong, but
I'm out of line, but I'm not wrong. Yes.
this is your channel. I mean, we could pick on what do I call him? Rick Van Winkle, whatever.
Yep. I just look at this way this is what I tell my son is all politicians are bad, son. And all you're trying to do is find the one that's pushing the bills that you agree with. I said, you'll never go wrong by that. Yeah, well,
I agree with Chimerian here. He says any pig is a monster within a generation after escaping captivity. They're monsters that, for legit reasons, are why we should be allowed to carry light anti-tank weaponry.
So I have a good one. So when I was in Afghanistan, I met a guy who was over near Texarkana. He was doing the Red River Armory up there. Anyway, what I had to laugh at for the whole thing was I was arguing with my friends who were Nigerian about guns. And the first argument, I think they'd gone to UT. Well, at least one of them. He said, well, no one should have to carry a gun. He said, AK-47s aren't used for hunting. It's fine because these people repeat the lines that the Democrats tell them. And so I said, oh, really? I said, I know a guy that uses an AK-47 to go hunt pigs. And they're just like, you can tell that their brain was the same thing with coyotes. I said, stop saying things that you don't know about because some Democrat told you that the Second Amendment was about hunting. If you And that's what I used
The
to
Second
do.
Amendment was never, well, it had parts of it was dealing with hunting because hunting was a way of life back then, but it wasn't the sole reason behind it.
Well, the reason behind it, that's what I always get onto. I said, if we only had a document that explained why they put certain things in the Constitution and that had been written by the founding fathers. Oh, I don't know. There was something called the Federalist Papers that
Right.
only explained everything in detail. And that's what gets me about it. And they're just like, and then I used to like post the link to the Federalist paper explaining out whatever we were arguing about. And they would.
But people are too fucking can't.
My
Problem is
yeah.
people won't take the fucking time to read shit. Me and you had a conversation about the TikTok
Right.
law that they want to push, and I'm saying that's going to be a whole lot more dangerous than what we think it is. You not really, but you kind of disagreed with me for a moment.
No, I disagreed with you initially. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, but you took the time and went and read the damn thing.
Well, I started listening to lawyers that discuss it. I agree with you. Here's the problem that I have with our government is they know that we don't have the time to read 1,400-page bills.
Yeah.
And then they pass them in the middle of the night, and then they act like, well, everyone else looked at it. And I said, no, what should happen is, it's here's the thing though, and this is what I always looked at it is, the Second Amendment is the government's faith in the people to do the right thing. Now it still requires some others, but yeah, but all these people just don't understand. Oh yeah, I have a coworker that likes going out in helicopters to shoot pigs.
There's a place down in Kingsville that they have various packages, and depending on how much money you want to spend, that determines your ammo count and what weaponry you get to use, all the way up to bars mounted on the side of a helicopter.
Oh yeah, well, I know locally they were having a huge problem. So this is up in Bell County, and the helicopter shooting, the helicopter hunting, knocked down the pigs enough that it's like. I have farmland. I've got about 30 acres being farmed right now. People have no conception on how fast a pig can destroy that. A few pigs can take out 2 to 3 acres overnight.
Yeah.
And that when I was in Hungary, I went hunting. Not that I shot anything, but.
So I got a cousin of mine. I love him dearly. He is one of my favorite persons to talk to around the holidays, but he's a fucking idiot.
Okay.
But yeah, I've hog dog before, and I spent about $170 to go do it. And
Damn.
They don't give you a gun; they give you a knife.
Oh,
and they give you a dog.
Well, see, I had
he's a beast of a pit bull. He's biggie. He's a big pit bull, and like Mastiff pit breed. Yeah. And this dog and I went out and we flushed a group of them, but like 3 of them turned towards us, and my friend Bo and his dog got to the majority of the pigs, and one of them got caught, the others got routed. My dog tackles one of the pigs by the ear, and then it's giving me the side eye because the pig is going to rip its ear off and then destroy the dog. Bo had like $7,000 or $10,000 vests that had
the Kevlar vest
deterrents on them. They don't let the pig tusks rip into the soft flesh of your puppy.
Normally they can still get underneath, and that's where they get them. Yeah.
So this dog is giving me this shitty side eye, and I've shit my pants. And I realize like it's time to go, and I jump on the hog. And the dog kind of puts himself around, like, here's the pig, and here's the dog, and here's me. And I get over here, and the dog does this thing where, like, it's like right across, but he sees me with the knife, and he knows what's getting ready to happen. And I just start jamming the thing in the rib cage and somewhere else, and I have an adrenaline blackout. And this is the sad part of this, because I spent $170 to not know what the fuck happened. And afterwards, like I've got no cuts or scrapes. The dog is now dead because it's old age. It happened 10 years ago. But we have this amazing story that Bruce jumped on the damn pig and knifed it about 70 times. And the dog was like more scared of Bruce towards the end. So Bo grabs me after he gets the knife out of my hand, and then he cuts the ear off the pig, and the dog goes and eats the pig's ear like bacon.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, I'm over here, and I've pissed myself and I've shit myself, and I'm not a picture of like masculinity right now. And after we all had a few good laughs about it, and we found out we were all right, and the pig was dead, we had like 13 pigs we killed, and we moved them to another portion of Bo's ranch. And then later on that day, I guess they had somebody go up in a helicopter and do that helicopter hunting. But we were flushing pigs along a bottleneck along this creek on his ranch down there, and that was pretty interesting. I've never done anything like that, and it dumped completely all the adrenaline I have, and I enjoyed it.
So
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, Bruce, you're telling a good story.
Go ahead.
You're talking about that, but exactly the same thing. That guy who was using the AK-47, he was talking about that's the way that he was dressing up his pit bulls, is they had the body armor, but body armor goes so far, and the pig tusk got underneath. I guess it got him right in the near the groin, just disemboweled his dog.
That disembowels the dog.
People forget about that. They're like, oh, it's not fair. I'm like, do you understand? Well, one is they're nuisance animals. Number two is how fast they breed.
Oh God, yeah.
They're not native. They're and no, javelinas are native, but
okay.
Pigs are not.
Okay.
Javelinas are a different genus or something. Anyway, they're but yeah, it's you have the but I think like Kamirian was talking about one generation. It's not even one generation. Apparently, it takes about 1 or 2 months, and they become feral.
Oh yeah, it is the fastest example of evolution, de-evolution to evolution in any species. Oh, not in any species, in any large species on the earth. Anyways, going back to my dumbass cousin really quick though.
Sorry.
He puts into there's this lottery that you can do in Alaska.
Oh yeah,
where
yeah.
In the lottery, you can go hunt a Kodiak bear because they're not a nuisance animal, but they kill other bearlings, and so far they're an issue. So he every year he signs up for this raffle that they put lottery, and he keeps telling me every year on the same day, "Hey, when I win this thing, you come up to Alaska with me, right?" I'm like, "No." First of all, how are you planning on hunting this Kodiak? Oh, with my bow. I'm like, oh, so you have to be within like maybe 500 yards of this killing monster, this big ass bear. He's like,
Wait a minute, 20 or 30 yards from that range. I mean, we're not talking.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, how long does it take you to run that? 20, 30 yards. You got like 5 seconds or less.
Right, and he's like, if you shoot it and you miss, how fast can you get another arrow down the line without that bear being on top of us? And if you go down, it's not like I could pick up the damn bow and put it, even if I go to kill the bear after it takes you out, I'm looking at legal issues because I'm not allowed to hunt said bear.
You're allowed to protect him though. If he gets attacked, like if he does this is one of the reasons that you would go out with the guide.
Yeah.
The guide would go out there. Well, it's the same thing to talk about with alligator tags. The alligator tags, you're allowed to, when you get them, you're allowed to disperse some of them out if they're, to other trained hunters or trappers. But here, speaking of Chimerian, I'm going to mention this much is because my ex was raising black heritage pigs. And guess on how big they got within under a year. How many pounds?
Fucking huge.
90?
400 pounds.
Yeah.
And see, that's a domestic pig. Now, a lot of the feral pigs don't get up that big, but I remember 2 miles from downtown Fort Worth. 2 miles downtown from Fort Worth. And so we're not talking, we're talking like from the courthouse. We're not, so right over in the Trinity River. We were doing some work down there and to go and talk to the contractor. And he said, oh, yeah, a 250-pound boar chased his supervisor around. Now, he was in a gator, chased him out of there because he was mad. And people don't realize just how many pigs are in the Trinity River Basin because they don't come out too often. But when it floods, they all pour out, and people all of a sudden start finding these pigs over there. And that was one of the things that terrified me when you start looking at it. Is usually the ones that you kill or eat are about 90 to 120, but
this past weekend I had to process two pigs, and they weren't the big heifers. They're still a lot to go through. Forgive my ignorance.
Yeah. But yeah, it's people forget just on how big animals are. I always love it. Like, it's defenseless. I said, did you see the rattlesnake that got beaten up by the rabbit? There's a video out there. It's pretty old, so it's not the best. But there's a rabbit that's beating up this poor snake.
I think my favorite, as of right now, my favorite animal on Animal Violent is this goose comes up and like gooses a horse, and the horse kicks back, and I don't know if it kills the goose, but it's laying on the ground just like done. There's no coming back from it.
Oh,
Kodiak bear though. We're not talking about black bear. We're not even talking about fucking grizzly.
You're talking about 1,000 to 1,500 pound bear. I'm not disagreeing with you. And how fast can a bear go? It's 30 miles an hour.
I mean, I'm tripping him or he's tripping me. Either way, I'm not going.
Well, one of the things I always have to laugh at is, and I don't try to mean this in one way, is, a lot of animals have that instinct that if you run, they'll chase.
Oh yeah,
yeah, prey drive.
The prey, yeah, exactly, and the predator, yeah, it's that prey. Anyway, the first thing I'm going is, you run, I'm standing still, because guess what? He's chasing you, not me.
Yeah, that's what they do. They have a very intensive prey drive, and they want something that will yield, something that stands still, that possibly could be getting itself prepared to counterstrike. Nah, they're not going to be involved with that.
Yeah. They're less likely to. But my whole thing is that if you take off running, I'm just standing still. He'll run by me.
Yeah. Terriers have a really good prey drive, and thank God they're only 20 pounds.
I had a border collie. That dog, good God, and they're fast.
The problem with that, and some of the misinformation we have been told to us and continue getting told to us how to deal with dangerous animals. If a shark attacks you, you punch in the nose. All the shark.
And if that doesn't work, poke them in the mouth with your stomach.
Right. Or if you're have an alligator chasing you, running a zigzag line, that doesn't work. My favorite is the one with the anaconda. If you're getting attacked by anaconda, lay perfectly still, and it will slowly wrap you up and start eating you from the feet up. Well, no, they don't go from the feet up. They go from the head down. So we're already in bad territory here. Once it gets past your waist, pull your arm to the side and get a knife that you magically have on your belt and cut yourself out.
I mean, the thing I have to laugh at is when I start hearing people talk about stuff, and it's just like, look, you have to, what was it with the alligator? Like I talked to one guy, this was over by Town Bluff. He said he shot the alligator in the head with a .38. It stunned it, but it didn't kill it.
Oh, pigs are the same fucking way.
Oh, I talked to one guy. He said he shot one pig 7 times with it was black talon round. I can't remember if it was a 45 or a 9mm.
That's why when we go hog dogging, we use a knife, because the knife will penetrate through the ribs and it'll actually get into the lungs. And once you puncture the lungs, things wind down for the pig pretty well.
I have had a fascination in go boar hunting with a shotgun using dragon's breath, though. Not saying it's a good idea, but
Well, and it depends on how big are you looking at it. Are you looking at most of the pigs I've seen, which are sows? They're probably about 120 to 140 pounds. It's
Sorry, chat. Mrs. Right. Pigs will kill you and eat you.
Well, exactly. Well, it's not just that. It's the my boss former boss. He was telling me that he worked at one place and they had all these chickens that died at one of the chicken farms, So what they did is they threw it over the fence to a guy who had a bunch of pigs. And he said it was completely disgusting watching the pigs step on him and just rip the bodies apart. And he's just going, well,
Oh God! Did you ever see the movie Snatch with Brad Pitt?
Yep.
A brick in his a pig farm.
Yep. I love that movie.
There has been times I thought it'd be really nice to know somebody who owns a pig farm.
Let's go to Deer Creek.
Travis, there's an even better one. There was a guy who had a folding pocket knife, who took on a polar bear, and apparently injured enough that it ran away. And he got a medal. This was back when before Canada was nuts. So this was what, the 1990s or so. But he did that. That's. Isn't that what the Romans used to do, where they used to light the pigs on fire and then send them towards their enemies?
I'm not saying it's a good idea.
Usually it's the boars you have to worry about, because the sows, as long as you don't mess with the little ones, they'll run away. And I've been in a few sites where we drive up there, but I remember being by Proctor Dam, and I had 2 machetes in my hand, and I hear this clacking sound, like, fuck. And I'm looking around, and of course the grass is up to my waist, and the nearest tree is not that tall. I'm looking at it, and I'm going, can I climb up there? And I'm thinking, if I hit it with a machete, that's just going to be just enough to get it even angry. That was one of those. Anyway, I walked around. There's no one else out there. I walked in a big circle and came back, and apparently he had moved. I was like, all right, that's fine. But I had to cite places where we're going to put a drill rig. But people forget that these animals are big. But but like you said with the mountain lion, that's a big animal. It's 200 pounds. I'm about 190, 200 pounds, and it's got claws. I mean, the best thing you can do is like physically hit it. I'll tell you this much: this is why people get donkeys, because donkeys fight rather than run. Horses will run, but donkeys will turn and fight.
Yeah. Oh God, the whole chicken thing. Chickens are fucking vicious little dicks. So are fucking turkeys. I'm living in Champaign for college, and there's an ostrich farm outside of Champaign, and the guy had 3 ostriches. One was named Rambo, Betty, and Daphne was the names of the ostriches. And the female ostriches would stick their head out of the cage, kinda, and so you could pet them. Rambo is kind of antisocial. Rambo starts, how bulls will start kicking their back leg as if they're about ready to charge you?
Yeah.
Well, there's a fence around these things, and the fence is like good 10 feet. I don't know. I won't say 10 feet, but it's tall. It's taller, it's tall. And he's doing it, and the owner's like, "Don't worry about it. He can't jump the fence. He's just being honoring." The fucking bird jumps the damn fence. And my ass, I'm still in pretty good shape at this point. I'm driving a 96 Ford Probe. It's low on the ground. I have the windows up because it's windows down because it was a hot summer day. I fucking start running. I dive into my car like it's a scene from a Dukes of Hazzard. I'm rolling up one window, then I start rolling up the other window, and the bird hops on my roof and starts pecking on my windshield because it's trying to get to me. Next thing I hear is a thump, then a boom as the ostrich falls over on the hood of my car. Not dead, by the way, because as I'm getting a better look at it, he's a fucking huge ass off-colored tranquilizer in his ass. And he's like, the guy's like, I am so sorry. He's never done that before. He's like, I'll pay for your car damages. Can I give you some ostrich eggs to make you feel better? Bruce, have you ever seen an ostrich egg?
Have I what?
Ever seen an ostrich egg?
They're huge.
Yeah, they're about like huge.
I think this son of a bitch gives me 6 of them. I'm like, thanks. In the back of my head, I'm like, I don't like ostriches anymore. What the fuck am I gonna do with these eggs?
Massive omelets.
Yeah, I ended up eating them. It took me a while. It took me a while to eat them, but yeah.
It's I learned some things about it. Well, talking about this is talking about chickens. My when I first met my ex, because she has all the animals, so she has a lot of the good stories whenever I was there. One of them was that she decided to buy from Cameron. You could buy at the time. You could buy what they call game birds.
Oh God.
Game birds, which we didn't realize until after the fact, are what they are fighting cocks. Now they've got these huge tails that are really beautiful, which is the reason that she wanted them. She got 2 black Sumatras. Now those are considered the most primeval of all of the chickens. Each of them had 3 spurs on them, on each leg. I'm not sure if the female did. I think even the female had spurs, oddly enough. But the male definitely had 3 spurs on each leg, and he ruled the roost. In the meantime, I think it was Kubalayas. I think she had a couple of other ones, but these Kubalayas, and they were cowardly, but they had spurs that were about 3 to 4 inches long each. And I went, holy crap! You can get stabbed and get infected. That could be really bad. Anyway, they were the cowardly ones that she had, but I think the Sumatras got squished from a windstorm, blew over a piece of plywood. We're talking like a 4x8, and squished, killed a couple of them that way. And then the Kubalayas, she got fed up with, captured them and sold them off.
Were these chickens that would? Were these the roosters that would gang rape the hens?
Yes. And what I mean that they gang rape, it's like everyone thinks that roosters would fight with each other. These roosters didn't fight. They just decided they'd all gang up. And so now you got like 6 roosters all trying to breed one hen. It's like, what the hell?
It turns into that situation where you have the 5 men of color and a little blonde girl.
Hey, a couple of them were white. A couple of them were white.
These birds right here, I've seen them on a lot of farms. A lot of guys will have like 2 to 4 of these on a farm, maybe up to 7. They have good eggs. They just make a lot of noise all day long.
See, here's the funny thing is anyone that has not dealt with agriculture, and this is what I have to laugh at when we're talking about chickens, and you read in the Bible and it says, when the cock crows. And as a kid, I thought, oh, that's when the sun's first coming up. No, it's not. It's 2 hours before the first part of the sun even comes up. Because the chickens will wake up at like 4 a.m. and they'll start crowing, and you're like, shut the hell up.
Peacocks are assholes too.
I love peacocks. I'll be honest. I like having all the animals, and the guineas have their little bork, they run around, and they're kind of cool. They'll also go and eat, and I don't care what anyone says. Chickens are omnivores, and if they will eat bugs left and right, they'll eat small mice. And the same thing for guineas, they'll go after snakes too. They'll go after small snakes.
There's a video of a horse. There's a mother hen and like 4 or 5 chicks, and the horse just goes down and eats like 2 of the baby chickens. I'm like, motherfucker, wasn't expecting that.
Oh, so my ex has a picture of where a great horned owl is coming and one of her roosters, she had a game camera. Yeah. And there's this picture of the owl coming in with its claws, and it's a side view, and the chicken's up in the air fighting it.
Oh God.
looks like a pretty even match depending on the size that you're getting. But yeah, people forget but guineas make chickens look like chickens are in Mensa. God. And chickens are pretty dumb.
Whenever somebody talks about animals, like me and Bruce have a mutual friend who games with us on Saturdays. Mm-hmm. Bruce, Big Greg,
yeah.
In the Milkbone story.
Oh God.
We really need to get him on here one of these times. So fucking, he hates. I wish I could tell it properly, but it's not my story.
He hates chickens with a passion.
Does he hate chickens?
He hates chickens with a passion.
Oh God, that guy. Is it like a trigger word? As much of a trigger word as say pineapple is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
It's just a shame that he's had so much trauma from foul. He'd rather hang out with donkeys.
That's Big Greg, not Little Greg.
Little Greg, no. Big Greg, yes. He'd rather hang out with donkeys. We're gonna probably want to wrap this up because we've stopped talking about the Perry versus Foster situation, and a lot of people tuned in to hear that. And we're going to agriculture, which when we hit agriculture, that's probably a good time to stop the stream.
No, that's the best time to keep going because we have stories.
I'm going to turn on my camera and shit in Discord. That way, people can jump in. But I wanted to talk about this stream for that subject for the first 45 to an hour, which we did.
Yeah.
And I want people to keep an eye on what goes on here because this might turn into a situation in your neighborhood. Like what Omanel said, there might be a DA in your neighborhood that does not have Western civilization's highest priorities as their priority, and they just want to see it all burn. So do what you can. I know it's impossible for us to vote our way out of tyranny, but just for right now, let your receipts from ammunition purchases be the detriment that they need to see.
I'm going to mention the other thing is your sheriffs matter. So make sure you vote for that. The other thing is your DA, many times you can vote for those people too. It's not like you can't vote. You just have more power the smaller your county is. But go out. You can't vote your way out of tyranny, but you can at least vote out tyrannical people until they get too much power. And if you're not voting, then guess what? You're just giving them power. This whole idea of like, oh, I'm not going to vote. Well, you know what? I can tell you this much. Your county commissioners and stuff like this, they have influence. Your county judge has influence. These are the people that matter, especially in Texas, that have a lot more power than you realize. And they'll affect you not just for legal issues. They affect you whether it's dams or other issues, especially your county commissioner. He determines which roads get paved. If nothing else, at least vote for no potholes.
Yeah. Anyway. Here in San Antonio, we are less than a month away from voting day. And there is a vote. I want all of my friends and everybody who has a pulse, and even the ones that don't, I want you to vote against Proposition A. Proposition A, that is a real issue, and what it means is that they're going to stop prosecuting small felonies, up to $1,000 felonies. They're going to stop it. They're going to try to Portland and San Diego us. And
it's going to be one of these things where people come in and they're going to just rob your local stores blind.
Yeah.
Because they don't prosecute anything. And like, no.
They decriminalize marijuana, which most of us are okay with, up to 4 ounces. But also included with Prop A, it prohibits San Antonio officers they can't use the smell of marijuana or hemp as probable cause for a search. Abortion decriminalization, which isn't really something that we give a shit about, and the expanding and mandating cite and release. Synthetic marijuana up to 4 ounces, driving while license is invalid, contraband in correctional facility, theft from business between $100 and $750, theft of service between $100 and $750, criminal mischief between $100 and $750, graffiti damage up to $2,500. All these things. This could be a court case and up to a year in jail, $4,000 fine for most serious misdemeanor convictions. It's not quote unquote felonies, but it's over $300. That's a felony. They don't have to deal with the initial arrest or subsequently have to make bail to get out of jail. And the cite and release program with Bexar County District Attorney's Office allows citations for all state eligible offenses except for graffiti. So if they pass it, it'll expand the cite and release program to include graffiti. Also be required to cite people in almost all cases where they currently have some discretion on whether to cite or arrest somebody. A mandate also applies to all Class C misdemeanors except public intoxication. And there's the lowest levels of crimes in the state law, like traffic tickets and thefts under $100. They're typically handled through citations anyway. They're only punishable by fines up to $500, not jail time. So they're trying to push in Prop A, and I'd like everybody to vote the fuck against it. This is a bad idea, and we can get marijuana decriminalized some other time on its own special bill. Prop A needs to go away. Prop A needs to be failed.
What bothers me about it is, and they act like it's not a huge deal. It's a huge deal if someone spray paints your house, and then you're the one that has to fix it, and you have no repercussions for it.
Yeah, that might not be in your home insurance, or worse yet, maybe you do have it, but you don't have the money to cover for the portion that the insurance requires before they can go to action.
Yeah,
and worse yet, the theft of service, that's in my field, because that means that if I don't find or fee somebody up to $750 for me to suck their shit or grease out, they can just say, no, I'm not, and Prop A won't let me do it. You don't get to do anything. Well, fuck you. I'm going to spray that shit back in your tank as hard as I can and splatter it everywhere. You pile of shit. And I will, because I've done it before. You will pay me. I leave my hoses out when I finish everything. I drain everything. I show the customer the tank. Here we go. I got photographs. Now you need to pay.
Well, here's the worst part, Bruce, is instead of you being affordable now you're going to charge $751 for everything. So now who do you think that hurts the most? It hurts the poor, because now they can't get cheap services because, you like, look, I can't afford to lose business because you won't pay me. Yeah, people don't think these things through.
No, they don't. And the thing that the one thing I'm happy about is currently our police commissioner, McManus, he's told people don't vote for Prop A. Their police unions are out there pushing everybody in their union capillaries, don't vote for Prop A. And our mayor is out there currently saying, do not vote for Prop A. That makes me very happy. We got 4 more weeks of this shit, and then we're done until the next assault on order happens. But
that kind of worries me, Bruce, because it's not like you live that far. Well, I say you don't live that far away, but it's like, okay, now I can't go to San Antonio, and now I can't go to Austin. This is ridiculous. I said, how does it, especially
like this? As soon as one city passes, they seem to catch on like a bushfire, a forest fire. Well, the city of Morton just passed it. I guess Pekin, Morton. I'm using Illinois. If Morton just passed a law, Pekin, Peoria, the surrounding cities will now look at the laws like, hey, maybe they don't have a bad idea. And next thing you know, your entire state goes that direction.
Well, what you have to do is you have to push back on, because it also works the opposite way. When they look over and say, well, look at how badly that area is run. But see, the problem, like you said, is it takes a couple of years for all of these things to be bad. I mean, San Francisco, and when we talk about Willie Brown, like I said, that one lady that I went out on a date with talked about San Francisco. She said Willie Brown would never allow this to happen. Whether you liked him or not, it was regardless. Is he wanted that city to be clean and livable and everything else, but Newsom didn't care, and it's like, yep. So, yep. Anyway.
I really think that this is where a lot of us have to put up our differences and start showing up to the meetings and make it known. You hit a very good point, Amanal, because I just found out today that the Dutch farmers won.
Yes, they did. Yep.
The Dutch farmers won, but nobody's fucking talking about it. And that needs to be broadcast loud and clear. And if you have any friends that are in Deutschland, you need to clap their farmers on the back, because they stopped you from sliding into tyranny and excessively high food prices.
Well,
and that would have affected the rest of us.
When Misa was on, he was talking about stuff like that, and I heard about a lot of that. Well, the other thing is, this is, they won bigly. They did. But we'll see in how they govern. That's the problem that I have with too many of these, is that but you got to do something, and you got to work at it. And the people forget, the 1970s, they allowed a lot of these. That's why Dirty Harry came out. They had all these bleeding hearts. No, we can't do this and we can't do that. And all of a sudden, I agree with Misa. Yeah, but here's the thing. Sometimes you do it just to delay, and that's the best thing you can do is delay. But look at what happened in the 1990s, where everyone started doing zero tolerance. I'm saying, there needs to be somewhere in between. It's like, look, are we doing this? But the problem I have with these Prop A's and stuff is now the police don't do anything, and then they don't seem to care about violent crimes either. Did you hear about the guy that strangled his stepson?
Yep.
He strangled his stepson in New York, and guess what he did? They let him out without any bail.
None.
And he admitted that they did it. He said, yeah, I held him firmly, and apparently he suffocated him that way. And they let him out on bail. I'm like, why would you let this man out on bail? Yeah, it may not be murder. It may be negligent homicide. Okay, fine. We can argue about what the charge is, but he's still a danger. He killed a kid. Yes. Well, the problem I have with this is that is many times these cities start determining it, and then people wonder why in the world they live there. It's like, no, we don't want your crap here. You can go live wherever you want. This is one of the reasons I want to live out in the country. I mean, if I had a little bit more money to actually build a house out there, but yeah, and the people.
Always been weird though, law wise. I mean, I agree with you. That guy should be sitting in a jail cell until proven guilty, not guilty. Sentence has been signed, sealed, and delivered, and take on. But at the same time, I'm like thinking in the back of my head, we're supposed to be a nation where you're innocent until proven guilty. So when he first gets arrested for this, he should be able to post bail and go out to live his life until proven guilty.
What was the bail?
Oh, I have no idea. Probably a goose egg, which I think is bullshit. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it should be in the billions of dollars. I think it should be a reasonable amount.
Well, the point of bail is to make sure that people, and I do agree with this, are they going to be a danger to society? That's one thing. But the problem I'm having is the releasing people on violent stuff.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, if you get a shoplifter, fine. Look, we're going to show this up. I think there's a lot of issues that need to be dealt with in the criminal justice system. I really do. But what is the one thing that they say is the number of kids who go to jail? How many of them have fathers? Like you're 80% of all people in jail weren't raised by their fathers.
Yeah, I was raised by my grandpa, but I get what you're saying.
It's the controlling factor a man has over children that is the nurturing or the authoritative voice that a boy needs growing up, and the black communities. In the black communities, we do not have that sort of authoritative voice. And so the voice of authority for the black man is atypically the voice of the warden and their security guard at the correctional facility they're at.
Well, here's the problem that I have with it is that if you listen to Thomas Sowell and several of these others, they talk about that was the big factor. But what's the first thing that the government did is you have to kick the man out of the house to get benefits. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was one of the worst things it's the destruction of the family system. And that's why I said it's the danger is these politicians that get into power that, they want, I'm not saying black and white because I think human beings are human beings, but they want people to be at each other's throats for stupid crap rather than actually discussing things that matter so we can realize just how crap they are.
You can't have a society that focuses on critical thinking and we're going to fix these actual real issues, because then the government has nothing to divide and conquer us with and make us struggle against each other instead of struggling against the government, which is getting bloated more by the day.
I mean, if you go out right now and look at how most of social media is considering the right wing versus left wing, there is no reason for me and you, Bruce, to be friends because of our voting background. Granted, I didn't vote for Biden though either, but I didn't vote for Trump.
But the point really is that they're manufacturing things. And I felt this way for the news is that they wanted a race war. I'm like, why? Why can't I just get along with my neighbor? We don't have to agree with everything, but you know what? That's one of the reasons I love role-playing games. We can hang out, we can play, we don't even have to talk about this. We can live in our fantasy world to escape from the drudgeries of real life and then recharge so we can face the world tomorrow. And that's the whole point of it. And the other thing is, if everyone starts playing games, not trying to be in my complete euphoric aspect, maybe you know what? We can say, yes, I can deal with the people that I can deal with that are good and decent human beings, and we can find a commonality in a world where they're trying to separate us. Um, so yeah, which is exactly it. Yeah, it's the division keeps people weak. And I'm not saying Uncle Sam loves it. I'm just saying that the people like Soros and Bill Gates love it. I will say as much, if it's true, and this is what's going to be interesting, and guess what, Conall? They don't care who you vote for. So we know who's going to be running. Sorry, I'm going to get a little political here. We know who's going to probably win the nomination for the Republican Party. Who do you think is going to win the nomination for the Democratic Party?
God, there's no one on the Democrat says it right now that
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to be running.
he said he just announced that he's going to be he's going to be running as a Democrat.
Well, he is a Democrat, but here's the funny thing. Guess what happens if either one wins?
Between Trump or Kennedy? I just love there to be another Kennedy in office. Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's the big loser? Who's the big loser, regardless of which one wins?
I don't know. Us? Me?
The deep state.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's why I don't think he's going to win. I think that Newsom is going to win.
Well,
Because-
Newsom. Well, here's the thing, though, is that's what they said about his father before they shot him. But here's the point, though, is Newsom isn't popular. Harris isn't popular. So, and Kennedy actually, whether you agree with him on stuff or not, is he's much more popular and charismatic than any of them. So,
yeah, I give you that. The Republican side, man. I just Trump. It's gonna be if Ron DeSantis does not run for president, I'd be really fucking surprised.
Well, DeSantis, I can tell you this much, listening to everyone, DeSantis is probably going to get about 20 or 30%. Trump's going to get about 50%. That's what it looks like right now for the polls. In fact, charging him with crimes increased his popularity amongst both Democrats and Republicans.
That's the funny thing. That reminds me of when NBC was bitching about Howard Stern back in early 80s.
You mean when Howard Stern was funny and wasn't a shill?
Yeah, whenever he was actually good.
Yep. But I have to laugh at this is, that's what's coming out is DeSantis. DeSantis wasn't supposed to. He was supposed to become the VP or run in 2028 was the plan, and but he lost a lot of respect from people for this. But here's the thing that people forget about, and we can point to this throughout history. How many times has it backfired whenever you try imprisoning your political opponent? Let's go use that Hugo Chavez. What happened 5 years after he went to jail?
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela.
Right.
Yep.
Hitler.
You get somebody worse.
Lenin. I mean, it's not necessarily that you get someone worse. These people come back stronger because if there's a really corrupt government, then guess what? People will say, you know what? Obviously, maybe this person isn't so bad because you're so terrible. This is.
Here's the thing: if Trump, I honestly believe that Trump will never see the incel of a prison whatsoever.
Right. Of course he won't.
Never, even if he's found guilty of, let's say, 14 of the 36 federal indictments.
No. It was a local indictment, and it's the same indictment multiple times.
Yeah, it's the same indictment 34 times, dude.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same crime, but they decided to do it, even though. And this was the funny part. It doesn't even count because it already expired. It's past its expiration date. They have the statute of limitations.
Yeah,
it's past the statute of limitations. And what he said is because he was outside of the state. It doesn't matter that he was the president. They said, well, we couldn't find him. He said, no, that doesn't count. They are jumping all over this. Sorry, I didn't mean to go that far.
well, that's fine. He's found it unguilty. He is 70 something plus, 80
Like
plus.
74, 76.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where I'm like, I don't know if this is a very American, but I think there should be an age cap. I mean, you have to be 35 and out to be president. I'm thinking up should actually have like nowhere after like 70s. So you don't have somebody asleep at the wheel.
Part of me, well, you know what this is the weird thing is apparently Trump only gets 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night. I mean, there's some weird things about Trump. Well, you don't have to like him, but the stuff that I hear about him is like the man doesn't view anything as negative publicity. This was even when he was doing the Marla Maples term. People like, oh my God, he did this. I said, yes, he's always been like that. It's Donald. All these people act like you don't know what Donald Trump is really like. I'm like, we have been watching Donald Trump since the early 1980s. Everyone knew who Donald Trump was, whether it was on The Apprentice or anything else. They knew what they're getting. And the same thing applied to Hillary Clinton. Everyone knew the type of person she was. But this is what gets me about it is so many people are brainwashed. We'll see what happens. But,
I'm actually surprised that Hillary didn't win just by numbers. And here's why I say that. In America, there are more women than there are men. So the cult of the vagina should have been able to elect her into office.
Well, except that they're ignoring one thing. Most women don't like Hillary Clinton.
That's true. That's true. But by numbers,
she was the first Meghan Markle.
Yep. Oh, yeah. She is a Meghan Markle. Speaking of which, is I've got to mention this because just for good old Misa over here, just so he doesn't feel completely left out. Ursula von der Leyen, who was talk about failing upwards. She was the defense secretary for Germany, apparently. And the German army did not have enough funds to put guns on there, so they painted broomsticks to act as machine guns on their. That was one. The other one is, speaking of crazy ladies, let's not forget the Finnish. I think it was the Finnish prime minister who just lost her vote as well. I'll tell you this much: I don't have to like him, but let's be honest. The European women in Parliament are so much hotter than the American women in Parliament.
I will disagree with you.
No. Go look at them. They actually are a lot more attractive.
The Finnish lady was hot, yes, but I'm looking at Lauren Boebert going, oh yeah.
No.
Get your daddy issues on with that OnlyFans site you keep teasing us with.
No, hold it. Look at the one. It's because European women are young. I don't disagree with that, Misa. But what was that one that was in their 40s that they just got for corruption from Greece?
Yeah, she was hot.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is the problem that we have. I'll tell you this much, and I don't care what anyone says. As I said, my ideal woman would have been a mixture between. I'll tell you who was. If you want to talk about world leaders that were really attractive, was what was her name? Benazir Bhutto. The Pakistani that died.
Oh.
In the 1980s, before they ran her out, she was pretty hot looking.
Are you talking about Eva Kali?
Okay, that was that's the one I'm referring to. That's corrupt. Yeah, she's pretty.
Yeah, but she's hot as fuck.
Yeah.
My penis is going to give her a pass.
Your punishment.
Well, that's not true.
Bring in the bonk, guys. The horny jail. Open the doors.
No.
Lady over here with a penis suicide. I'm a Pelosi man myself.
I'm going to have to put this up because you're talking about this. Is I have to feel that her punishment would be to spend 6 months with Conall. And to be fair, Conall, after we see her come out, she'll probably have gained like 80 pounds or something like that. She's
like well fed. I can tell you that much. I don't know what happened. I went in there, came out pregnant and well fed.
I mean, she looks like she has some sweater puppies. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't care whether she has sweater puppies or not. She has a nice face. The face is the first thing I look at. And I don't want to see someone
more, but that's fine.
Is it the mouth size that you look at? I'm just curious.
No. If that was true, I would have found what's her name. What was her name? The one from Pretty Woman, Julia.
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts creeps me out because I keep thinking that she's going to swallow my head like a snake.
I'm okay with that.
She got the Kennedy mouth. She's got Kennedy mouth. I'm not a big Julia Roberts guy.
Julia Roberts looks like she'll come over your head and just swallow the whole thing, like a big giant snake. Anyway.
She those looks like a girl I dated back in high school.
You know what? This is what we have to do. See, it would be so much better if we actually had voting based on looks rather than getting Mao Zedong, the
I mean-
feminist version, running for president. Yes, I know, Misa. That's the lady you're stuck with. We're just Met Friedrichsen. Let's see what she looks like.
Mette Friedrichsen.
Boy, this conversation has gone in a weird position.
Yeah, we go a lot of different places. Oh,
You know what she
really
reminds
pretty.
me of was Taylor Thompson, that comedian.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
She's really pretty, statuesque but pretty.
She kind of looks like a librarian, a soccer mom, or something. I don't know.
Some of these women still look like they actually take care of themselves rather than just becoming, like Hillary Clinton became Mao Zedong in pastels.
I like Hillary Clinton's eventual transition to pants suit. That was the best.
No. Did you see it where she wore it looked like except it was pastel, where she wore the thing that looked like Mao Zedong?
Yes.
Yes,
I remember that.
it wasn't quite even a pantsuit. I don't know how to describe it, but it looks like it's the same clothes that he wore, except that she decided to make it in pastels.
Well, they had to make it bulky enough to fit her catheter and her other life-saving equipment that she has to wear medically underneath it. Because I don't know if you remember the side of beef shit that Hillary Clinton endured, but remember when they wheeled her out on a dolly and then flung her into the side door of a fucking van and shut the van because she was like having real medical issues.
Well, the first thing when I saw that is I looked at it and I said, wait a minute, that looks like an ambulance. And I found it online, and it is an ambulance. It's the same body type as an ambulance.
When was this?
This was 9/11 Memorial in 2016.
Yeah.
She went out there, and apparently she had a seizure. And then they said, oh, it was because of the flu, where they gave her this weird, it looked like a weird body double.
Her body doubles got out, and they were smiling and shaking hands, not saying a fucking thing. It was funny.
There's a guy I play a Warhammer Fantasy with on Fridays when we actually do have games, and he has such a fucking massive hard on for Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Who?
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh yeah, she's kind of hot.
No, she is not.
You look at that lady.
Yeah,
she's got some good feminine curves, man, and more so. She also has some mommy on the side to her.
She has a face of an angry gorilla. I mean, I kind of get with you on the whole Lawrence Bobbitt out of Colorado. I'm like, yeah, she's hot. Just find a way to keep her fucking mouth shut. She'd be even better. But that's my opinion. It's like AOC. Once again, fucking hot. Just gotta find a way to keep her fucking mouth shut, or keep her mouth busy. Depends on how you look at it.
Actually, I have to
another Kennedy mouth.
Actually, you know what I loved was when they had when the libs of TikTok trolled her and got a picture with her, and then she gets all mad. Like, do you not have people that are supposed to do that one? In the right lighting and the right makeup, at the right angle, she can be cute. That's the one that you're just doing there.
What did Flady say? Flady, what did Flady? She's got the jaw of Tyson. She looks like she's on steroids.
She might be CrossFit material.
There's a video out there where she's like doing pull-ups, but instead of doing pull-ups, she's doing like the CrossFit pull-ups where it's all fucking crazy as hell. And I'm like, oh no. She's not allowed to like grab a hold of any part of my body. She'll rip it right off. No.
All right. This is where we have to end the stream at 3 hours. We've gone from a very important social and political topic to we went to agriculture where I thought, okay, this is the antithesis of what I wanted to get into. And now we're like cruising BuzzFeed's hot chicks of European nations.
Hey, we've done that on Christmas campaign. We did that.
I'm telling you, look, You know, you got to get Benazir Bhutto in there. When she was young, she was very attractive, I thought.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
You know,
You know who was never
Good night,
hot?
everybody.
told him my
Mother
ear.
Teresa.
We're gonna have to
Mother
wrap
Teresa
this
was
up.
never hot.
If you've got my Discord link, I'll put it in here again. I'm going to open up a Discord live chat,
Oh God.
and we can continue this over there. But
Okay.
I need to get off YouTube before I say something that I'm going to need a lawyer and a human resources officer to help get me out of.
Yeah, I was just trying to make up for the lack of Janet from another planet on our stream. I mean,
You leave that sweet lady alone.
she'll find a
watching
way
the
to
Blues
get us kicked
Brothers.
off it. When that fateful day comes and we get kicked off of YouTube and Rumble won't have us, and we have to air our Pathfinder game over in Pornhub, she'll find a way to get us kicked off of that too.
All right. Everybody have a good night. See you in Discord.